Good evening, Dungeon Masters. Welcome to our masterpiece of a show today. I'm Alex,
And I'm Joe.
and today, God, I can't even keep it up. And today, we have a very special guest. If you've been living under a rock, maybe you might not know that who Baron de Ropp is. But just in case you're not familiar with the Baron, not the perfecter of the French bread pizza, mind you, the other Baron. Um, Baron is, I would say, probably one of the hobbies. I would say probably penultimate RPG deep thinkers. He is a
Yes.
huge RPG analyst, and if you've ever watched his channel, the Dungeon Masterpiece, bit of a play on old school masterpiece theater, which I love.
Yep.
He takes a really hard look at all kinds of systems, all kinds of mechanics, rules in RPGs. We have some hard-hitting questions that we're going to throw at him. We can't wait to do that. What you may not also know about him is that he has like a billion names. His birth certificate actually looks like a software license agreement. You know, like if you like you got to scroll for a minute and hit accept. But he is the Baron to us. He is awesome.
Yes.
He is a winemaker. Bet people didn't know that. And he not only has this awesome YouTube channel, I think 47,000 followers at this point, which is amazing to me. You have your own website,
first year,
right? Well, in existence since 2020, I believe.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yep.
June 2020.
Dungeon Master
slow.
Yeah, right.
Pandemic.
DungeonMasterpiece.com, which is your own website, and I noticed that you also offer DM services to folks, which is just amazing, and I love the way that's broken out. So I'll put a link in the description. Please check that out. Active Patreon with a ton of people who are supporting the Baron's awesome work, and we are very, very fortunate to have him here on the show. I know you as Mapu Mapu, and I know you as Snake Eyes. Most importantly, I know you as Helen, and we're gonna maybe talk all about that, I hope. But Baron, we are so grateful to you to be on our show today.
Yes.
I'm ecstatic to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh man,
we appreciate it, man.
Well,
Grateful for the opportunity.
You know, Joe, we need a little bit of refinement on this show, and I'm like, you know, if we need refinement, there's only one person that I can think of who can sort of elevate, you know, this sort of nonsense.
Oh yeah, there's going to be some deep thinking, that's for sure today. But I brought my water wings, so I will not drown. I'm good to go.
Yeah, I'm going to swallow some water, I'm sure. I do want to tell you this story, Joe, before we get started, which is hilarious. So we just got back from Jeff Con, where I ran into the Baron there, and it was so funny because I instantly recognized him, sort of, and I'm like, oh man, I love your content. You know, I love what you've done with the channel, love where it's going, da-da-da. And I'm like, I'm Alex, by the way. And he's like, yeah, you moron, you ran a game for me. And I was like, I'm so sorry. So that's it'll be, if it's not clear, you know, later on, it's certainly be clear now, like what we're dealing with here in terms of levels. Like I couldn't even remember that I had been in an awesome game with you. So my apologies.
No, you know, I'm sure you run games for hundreds of people. You know,
yeah, literally tens. So
yeah,
right, or just me like 100 times doing different voices.
Right, exactly.
Well, I think it's fair to say, man, we had an awesome time at Jeff Con. It was really cool.
Oh yeah,
can't wait to get into some of that. But Joe, man, kick us off because we have a tradition.
Yeah, we do have a tradition of whimsy here. I'm kidding. That's a line from Toys. We're moving past that. Great movie. But anyway, no, we do have a tradition. And the big one here is, what strange alchemical spill splashed into your eyes and gave you these superpowers? Like, what is the origin story of gaming?
Ooh, what was the strange alchemical spill? It came about from Cartoon Network, actually.
Wow.
Watching too much Sailor Moon is really what started it. And that sounds like a joke. Like that sounds like I'm being crazy, but no, that's really what happened.
That's epic.
I know, right? So
Right? How did Sailor Moon like pull you into the world of gaming or into
yeah,
like
You know, I
so,
did not
hobby
anticipate
lifestyle?
the anime background story.
and to be clear, I'm not like, there are some animes that I enjoy, but like I would definitely not consider myself an anime fan. Like the concept of anime is good because it is anime as genre, that is a completely like lost logical fallacy to me. And I don't understand how people are like into anime. That's like, I'm into dramas. No, I'm into good dramas, you know?
Right.
Gotcha.
Or it's not even, it's even worse than that. It's, I'm into American Hollywood films is what anime is to me, as like a, if you were to perceive it as
Yeah.
a genre. But
It's quite broad.
it's extremely broad. So anyway, no, when I started middle school, I was 9 years old, and in my homeroom class, there were some nerds, you know, on the other end of the classroom that were playing Magic the Gathering, and I had no idea what this was.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my fast friends that I had made at homeroom or during homeroom gave me a few cards to play with. You know, I monkeyed around and learned the rules. And I finally convinced my mother, with what little money we had at the time, to take me to Game Board, a store in the mall, and buy a few booster packs and a deck of cards. And I started playing Magic the Gathering. This was like when Mirage Block and 4th edition was out. And after about 2 or 3 months of this, we went back into the store, and, you know, I was going to buy a few more booster packs, and there was this rack of books next to the checkout stand. And one of them was for a Sailor Moon RPG in the Tri-Stat system. And you know, I just took a notice to it. I was like, holy crap, Mom, it's like the cartoon that I watch at the, you know, my family owned a business, a struggling business, downtown. And I would get out of school and either walk or I'd get picked up by somebody who worked at the business. I'd go, I went to an inner city school and then went to the business where my family worked.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would leave there and take like $3 and go get a milkshake after school. Like that was the thing. And at the milk creamery, they had a TV where I'd watch Cartoon Network. And it was like my only experience of cable was whatever I could get in like this 45-minute window while I was enjoying a milkshake after school. Wow. So the one of the 3 cartoons that was on was Sailor Moon. So, you know, I exclaimed to my mother, "Oh my gosh, it's a Sailor Moon game!" Like I didn't know what it was, and you know, my mom was like, "Oh, do you want me to get it for you?" Like immediately. And I found out after the fact the reason she was like that, you know, the reason she was so motivated was because she thought that Magic the Gathering was the same thing as Dungeons and Dragons, and Dungeons and Dragons was of the devil because of the Satanic Panic. So my mom was kind of a pushover, and, you know, was reluctantly buying me the Magic cards because she was just trying to, you know, I don't know why she didn't put her foot down on it if she thought that it was of the devil.
She was like terrified. Like, I'm gonna get these for you, but yeah. I'm terrified the whole time that
you're gonna lose your soul to Satan and Lucifer, and, you know, sacrifice other children at school. But
good mother, right there.
Exactly. So anyway, she got this book for me, and I just voraciously tore it into it, and, you know, started making Sailor Moon-esque monsters and played a few games of Sailor Moon with my friends until finally one of my other friends in my science class came up to me and he was like, you know, this game is a lot like Dungeons and Dragons. And I was like, well, what the heck is Dungeons and Dragons? That sounds cool.
What's this?
So he brought a few of his books for me from 2nd edition to check out. And, you know, I just fell in love. I was like, oh my gosh, this is, you know, I used to play with, like, you know, toy knights and dragons as a little kid. Yep. And now I was a preteen kid, you know, I was like 9-10 years old. And this is everything I ever wanted. Mm-hmm. Nice. But of course, it was only for the weekend. I had to give the books back to him on Monday. So Monday came around and I gave the books back to him. sure enough, Friday rolled around, and that same kid came back and he said, "Hey, my mom said I have to get rid of these because they were given to me by my dad, because my dad wanted to make my mom mad because these are of the devil."
Oh, man.
Oh my
Do you-
gosh.
Do you want them? And I was like, heck yes, I want them.
Just don't tell my mom.
Just
Yeah.
don't tell. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I was younger. I didn't know any of this. Like
Right.
my parents had just recently divorced, and my mom didn't really communicate to me. Like, she didn't intimate to me that she was worried of me taking a turn down a dark demonic path because I was playing Dungeons and Dragons. Of course, I think finally she started to realize just how much of a creative outlet it was, and that there was really nothing satanic going on in my bedroom while I was on the floor with notebook paper drawing ridiculous dungeon maps.
Wow, his math, social experience, and creativity are just
exactly
going off the charts lately.
So anyway, it just kind of took off from there, and then
Did you form a group at any point after that? Like, did you have that early experience? Like, hey, like let's all get together and.
I mean, it was middle school, so we kind of sort of like just amorphously talked about it on the bus and at lunch and on the in between classes, and it was all just kind of like Cold War D&D, if that makes sense.
Oh man.
And then we discovered back in the Tri-Stat system, because we were just nerds for like BattleTech and stuff like that, we discovered that there was this bolt-on for Big Eyes Small Mouth called Big Robots Cool Starships. So we got a couple of these books and just started making massive mech army armadas and flotillas, and statting them out at home, and then BSing each other about how our armada could blow up your armada, and never actually doing anything with it, but it was a ton of fun.
That's awesome.
Oh, I love it.
But it wasn't until I finally got out of middle school, really. Like, I would make like my own dungeons and imagine what it was like to do the level design, but it wasn't until I got into high school that I finally was like, okay, so I'm gonna have groups of players, and we're going to play, and we're going to run dungeons, and that's reading, voraciously reading the second edition. And then my mom, I guess, finally realized, coming to her senses and acquiescing, and getting me the third edition books. And then that I started playing third edition in high school. It wasn't until third edition that I really started to play, air quote D&D the way it's supposed to be played. Whatever the heck that means.
What is that? I've never played it right.
Who knows? Yeah, what does that even mean?
I hacked it from day one.
Yeah, exactly. But it was around high school that happened, and then I would really start to say that after I graduated from high school, for about 5 years, me and a couple of friends that I used to play with in middle school, we all started going to Borders Books, the bookstore in the west side of my hometown, and we would play there, and we started attracting other patrons at the bookstore, and they would join our group, and some people would leave, and this went on for years until finally one of us got us hooked into playing MMOs. And I did that for like 2 years, and then shelved D&D for most of 4th edition, and really started to get back into it as kind of like a self-therapy while I was struggling through a first marriage and just doing some world building.
Oh.
And it was around that time that I bumped into Hanker Infernal, when I bumped into at the time Drunkens and Dragons on YouTube. And despite having played multiple systems up to that point, it had never dawned on me or occurred to me that I can critically think about the rules as presented. And that was kind of the linchpin. I was like, wait a minute, I can do that. And
interesting.
Like
major level up moment, right?
But like once that happened, it was like all of the stuff that I had been thinking about sociology and just world events and civics had all just kind of like, wait a minute, all of this stuff is equally applicable to D&D, and
I could use all of it.
Exactly. So it was all of that just kind of dogpiled into my understanding of the game at that point. And
Nice.
After thinking about it in such a critical way for nearly 8 years, 7 years, something like that, I finally, I had kind of kicked around the idea of like, would I start a channel? Should I start one?
Right.
Do I have things I could share? And I'm glad I waited until I did, because I don't feel like I would have had, without 7-8 years worth of actually really thinking about it hard. I don't think I would have had the crystallized ability to articulate exactly the kinds of stuff that I wanted to say.
Yep.
Right.
And
man,
I think that shows in the way that my channel grew, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm not trying to like toot my own horn.
No.
Yeah.
No, toot away, sir. We'll toot it for you.
We talked for a minute before this recording started about one of the reasons why Joe and I asked about the origin story is sort of to establish credibility, right? And I think for anybody to be a commentator on the hobby, you kind of have to do the hobby and have experience with the hobby, and then you not only do you have this familiarity at a certain level, but eventually you reach this point where you kind of get above it and you're able to analyze the hobby.
Right.
And you just don't get that like overnight. Like you kind of have to have some reps in, but before you get to that point. So that's awesome. I'm curious though, Baron, because you just released a video not too long ago, or maybe it was a minute ago. I think it was your top 20 favorite RPG systems.
It was just a top smattering.
Yeah.
They're in no particular order. Ask me tomorrow what my favorite one is. Be different from the one today.
No, so. I understand. I'm not holding you to that. I am pleased that ICRPG made the list. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm curious. In terms of what you're talking about, what other games have you played or DM'd?
Yeah.
And kind of as you were progressing through the hobby. And what have been some
as like a timeline?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, was it just Bessem and a scattered editions of Dungeons and Dragons, or like you mentioned BattleTech? Like, did you guys veer off? Did you check any of these other what other systems did you poke at along the journey?
Well, let's see. I did. So I started with the Sailor Moon RPG, then did 2nd edition. Then did 3rd edition, did Star Wars D20. Let's see, I've done.
Weg's the best.
Do what? Weg's.
Weg's the best. Sorry,
the best.
I had some West End games in my throat.
The D20 Star Wars is a joke. Let's see.
That was a hot take.
A joke.
Well, I almost said I'm sorry. Like, I played D20 Star Wars. Like, oh.
I dabbled a little bit with BattleTech. I DM'd 3rd edition and played what I would say a considerable amount of 3rd edition, and that's only saying that because I've probably played as a player less than 50 sessions of anything in my entire life.
Oh wow! Forever DM.
Yeah, forever DM for sure. Nearly 30 years of DMing experience and less than 30 gaming sessions of player experience.
Then I really feel honored then. like 10% of your gaming has been with me.
Yeah, exactly. I've played in 3 of your games now.
30%.
Yeah, crazy.
Let's see. Oh gosh, what have I done? There was a while there where I was just doing one shots in tons of systems.
Gotcha.
Kind of like the
I just like to feel
appetizer course. The plate of everything where you get like a little taste of all of it.
Exactly. It was let's see, I did GURPS for a minute. Oh gosh, it's all so blurry now because they were all so bad. Chill. I I did West End Star Wars and I enjoyed it. It was about the time that I was starting to burn out on a particular player group, though.
Mm-hmm.
And we can come back, dog ear that comment, and we will talk about that later. Like seriously, write that one down. I want to talk about that more later.
Joe.
Let's see. Oh God, I can't even remember.
That's okay.
Some of them. But more often than not, I find myself part of that experiment of doing like the smorgasbord of games for like 6 months was I wanted to see if my ability to do a cold read of the rules actually manifested in like if what manifested at the table was congruent with what I anticipated off of a cold read of the rules. That was what I was trying to identify.
Interesting.
Right.
Because
go ahead.
Because I'll say I have a personal philosophy about that, which is that, you know, I think there's a lot of, and this might be a Watty criticism, I think there's a lot of attention given to what to say, but I don't know that there's a lot of attention given to how to say it. In other words, I think maybe a failing across a lot of systems is there's not enough attention given to how to present the information to make it player and DM accessible, right? So, like, I'm I'm a cold reader, right? Just as you point out, I'm a cold reader. I'm picking this book up. I want to, you know, run this for my homies tomorrow night, you know, and I'm going through, and it's just like sometimes you get into it, and it's just like, you know, it's just written in a foreign language, you know?
Right. Yeah. No.
Why do I feel like a meme with math symbols floating around my head?
No, and honestly, I think the worst offender of that, and I want to say 5th edition is okay at that problem, just because it has a heritage of being able to pull from all the other editions and say, okay, this is how all these prior editions explain these concepts, so let's copy paste and clean them up for modern audiences. But it's just going through the motions, and they're not actually trying to refine it in a way that's presentable to modern audiences. They're just doing copy editing. Whereas you can really see this be a problem in an extremely innovative game system that doesn't have that heritage to draw from and is extremely unique, like Fate Core, which I feel like was one of the most enlightening game systems to sit down and actually play, but is horridly opaque when you try and sit down and read it. It is impossible for a beer and pretzels player to just fully understand and comprehend what the game system is even trying to accomplish.
Yeah, right.
Well, and then you add, like, you need special dice on top of it, and to me, I'm just like, you just alienated a bunch of people.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that they didn't come up with a system which you can see homebrewed a little bit, which is take 2 different colored dice or like 2 different style dice and use one as the subtractor and one as the adder, and then just sum them together to get a fudge number. Like, the fact that wasn't even mentioned in the book is ludicrous.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they're not even
an option.
Yeah,
exactly.
They're not even strictly binary. Because you've got plus, minus, and 0.
And null.
It's
exactly.
It's more like a D3.
Really?
Right?
Sure.
You got plus, minus, and blank.
Or,
you know, and nothing.
But you're right. I mean, conceptually, it's kind of a fun system to play, but it's just not an accessible one. I feel.
Yeah, you I didn't fully understand it reading the book, because I checked out Fate and I read the book and I was like, okay, like, I kind of think I understand what's going on. Like, and I played a shoot load. I covered it there. I played a shoot load of a whole ton of game systems. So, like, I was kind of like, you know, I was able to grok most of it, but like the explanations of how to actually utilize it at the table were
why
so
we're
bland.
doing it.
Yes,
that's the thing. It's why you were doing it that is completely explained.
Yeah.
Right? It was like 1% milk or skim. I was like, dude, I wanted half and half. Like, I can see my hand through the bowl in this thing full of milk. I'm not eating cereal with water.
Right.
Exactly. It was blandly, like, shot through. Like, it was hard to like, so see it at the table from that.
We beat up on Fate a little bit here, but I'm curious though, Baron, as a result of all this sort of introspection, looking at these systems from the cold reader point of view and then challenging
Right.
yourself to then run them, what are some of the standouts? You probably covered this on your channel, and I would recommend that anybody go watch your channel. But what are some of the standouts that you're like, oh yeah, like this one was super accessible?
I think the biggest standout, I think what really got me to, because I used to, so obviously I got started playing in second edition, so I've got this cold read pull of design philosophy from reading the Dungeon Master's Guide in second edition that still is very similar and play style to first edition or basic, right? So I've got kind of an old school grognardy-ish type vibe, in like it's just lurking back there in like how I think about gaming. And then the OSR is just interesting, but honestly, like the wild creativity of it turned me off at first, and I don't know why. I just wanted something dark and gritty. And then Knave really got me to sit down and say, like it was kind of, Ben Milton's Knave was the game that got me to finally sit down and say, here are the nuts and bolts of what really makes OSR-ness OSR. It's like if we were to strip away, I joke now on my channel occasionally that the OSR should be called old school Rococo because it's just so overwrought at this point. There's so much nonsense going on in it. It's not bad nonsense. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, totally.
Their own community fractured. Just say it.
Yeah.
Like nobody can really agree what OSR means.
Exactly. And it continues to fracture.
Yeah.
Like there's an entire family of games and a methodology of play called odd likes, and even within that subniche of subniche, the into the odd ecosystem, they can't decide if it's OSR, NSR, which means New School Revival, which is an offshoot of the OSR, or if it's FKR, which is Fry Kriegspiel Revival. So like they're just constantly bickering with one another. But at any rate, like
I just wanted a hot pastrami on rye with onions.
Right.
Exactly. But I think Knave did a really good job of stripping back all of the nonsense.
Yeah.
And really exposing what was core to the OSR. And that's when I was like, okay, everything is actually just bolt-on functionality to what Knave has presented here.
Yeah, it's pretty cleanly written too.
It's pretty cleanly written. There's a few things. It's got some spots, but I'm curious to see. I keep resisting reading Knave second editions in progress because I'm like I don't want to have like a visceral reaction that will get cleaned up later, or visceral reaction to something that will get cleaned up later.
Yeah.
But no, I think Ben did a really good job of really defining and nailing down something that everybody could agree on of what is true and tantamount to the OSR experience. So that is absolutely a standout in that regard.
Gotcha.
Let's see. I think what's really interesting about the world as it has changed, as it has changed lately, is you have the internet, and that's new, and you have Acquisitions Incorporated and Dimension 20 and Adventure Time, or not Adventure Time, what is it, the Adventure Zone, and Critical Role, all these live plays,
right?
And why is there not a system that is better suited to the method, like to acting like improv acting with rules? And I feel like Burning Wheel is that, but nobody has figured it out yet. I want to see Brennan Lee Mulligan run a game in Burning Wheel, just because there's so much ideology and narrative backstory baked into every character. It's such a character focused game, and it's appropriately crunchy to where you can still do crunchy stuff with your ideology, with your character. That you know, focus. those really tight dice check scenarios that make for good you know, shock and awe moments when you roll dice in YouTube shorts and on TikTok. Like, the marketing potential is still there, built into the game.
Interesting.
But it also is really good at bringing out a character's ideology. So I think Burning Wheel is an unsung hero that needs to be
better tool for the job.
Yeah, it's a much better tool for the job. I think, you know, using any other form of D&D is like trying to build a deck with a hammer and nails when you could be using, you know, a screw gun or you know, some sort of other fastening system.
Right. Well, I mean,
better for the process.
I would liken it to I mean, this could be a weird deep cut. I would liken it to well, man, and I totally just flaked on what the heck the show was called. Home Improvement. He had the show Tool Time.
Exactly.
Sure, there was easier way to do things, but Binford Tools was a sponsor. Or,
right.
When you back it up, it was, you know, that entertainment, so to speak, or that brand name that was going to pull a lot of people in. So,
right.
I mean, it does kind of make sense on that standpoint, on that entertainment, building a show based on the perception of a brand that's already huge. You know, all these shows, even if there was something or a better tool for it, you know, these shows are definitely, you know, propping up on the Dungeons and Dragons because it is a familiar name. So
right.
I think that kind of like, you know, it, or at least that's just my idea of the reason why is, you know, it's that more power.
yeah. Part of me wants to say you're not wrong, but you know, like I mean, Critical Role and
take it, but take the average person. If you ask them, do you know what Dungeons and Dragons is?
They don't
say yes. Well, they're going to say yes. Because
they're going to say yes, but
they've heard of that. But if you say, hey, the Burning Wheel, people are going to be like, is it like Michelin or Goodyear? Like they're not going to, you know what I mean? It's like that initial thing of most people have not heard of it.
Right.
So
right.
Like, what do we?
Yeah. If you have this live play and they're like, oh, we're playing the Burning Wheel. Some people are probably just going to scroll by because they're like, I'm not sure what they mean by that. Like what kind of game, but we're playing Dungeons and Dragons. People are going to know, you know, they're going to have heard about it. You know, everybody knows Stranger Things. So
right.
And not that Stranger Things came before these other shows. I'm just saying it's a much more broadly familiar thing, which is in essence how it kind of came to the forefront with those shows.
I think so. This is about to be a critique on Hollywood and a critique on marketing practices in general. Here for just a second.
Let me get my water wings on.
I know, right? We have reached a point in media production in general where production houses, especially Disney, for example, now are more thinking about their IPs in a form of an ecosystem instead of as a means to explore story ideas and create new concepts or movies, right? Like when we think about what is upcoming in the lineup for Disney, you think about, okay, we've got Star Wars, the films, which, you know, they were films. And then you've got The Mandalorian, and then The Mandalorian has its offshoot. What is it? The Boba Fett story. And you have what's his name? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose my nerd word. I'm sorry. Andor. No, I was thinking of
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan.
Yep.
You have Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you're gonna have like offshoots of some other characters, right? Like is Anakin's ex Padawan gonna get her own show? Like how many characters are gonna get their own offshoots? And it just keeps on spider webbing out into this content farm, right? But it's all about how much can we harvest out of this IP universe, right? And Marvel is the same way. And what you're not seeing anymore is like nobody is going to go to the movies because, like, name any actor or actress that has been, you know, an A-list celebrity. Name any A-list celebrity that has risen from like nowhere as a starlet upcoming. Name one that is so punchy that you would go to see the movie because they are in the movie. Like Chris Pratt, Chris Pines, like all the Chris's, Chris Evans, like they're good actors, but you're not like, oh, this is a Tom Hanks movie, I'm gonna go see a Tom Hanks movie. Like you don't
Yeah.
that doesn't happen anymore.
He's one of the last ones, I would say.
Right?
Exactly.
Knows in it, I'm in.
Right, exactly. So
Although I will say directorial, if Edgar Wright's making a movie, I'm gonna go watch it.
Well, right.
But he's writer director. He's not in his own movies.
he's not in his own
But I will
movies.
watch every Edgar Wright movie because
Well, but that's
they're awesome.
Well, sure, Joe, but
Right.
I mean that's like a particular fandom, right? You know, it's
No.
right.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a particular fandom. Like if you're just like, oh my gosh, like I'm all in on, you know, whatever Chris Pratt movies, I'm gonna go. Like that's particular to
Right.
me. But I
Right.
think,
Keep a straight face on that.
but I think you're right. I mean, you know, you just don't have the John Waynes and the Errol Flynns.
Exactly.
You know,
You don't
Yeah.
you don't have that anymore. So
It's a me, Mario.
right.
I'm sorry, I can't with the Chris Pratt.
The problem with that though is that you do see that kind of allure that's somehow popping up in live plays. Brendan Lee Mulligan and Matt
true.
Mercer are like, you know, you've got anime fans that will eat up anything Matt Mercer touches.
All right.
And if he decides that he's going to play Burning Wheel, fans are going to watch him play Burning Wheel. If Brendan
That's true.
decides he's going to play Burning Wheel, fans are going to watch him play Burning Wheel. So there's a huge missed opportunity there to have that kind of old school Hollywood experience and just ramrod some other RPG into the system. And you know, it doesn't have to be D&D because it's approachable. You know,
Right.
find
Good point.
a celebrity that has, and this is the problem here, is it's becoming increasingly difficult to find celebrities who will watch celebrities because they are a particular celebrity. It's
Right.
becoming increasingly hard to find one of these people that has this kind of allure that you can get to play a tabletop RPG, and then you know, have some other RPG experience come about because they're using a particular rule set that's not D&D.
Right.
So that's a very long-winded complaint there.
No,
but-
no, but
a lot of great points in it.
but I think it's super
Oh.
valid. I am disappointed though after, you know, all of that you didn't say the Sailor Moon RPG. I'm just a little bit sad about that, but
Tristat is good for what it was, but you know, it's all right. It's good for what it is. It's crunchy on the upfront and really simple on playtime, which is nice if that's
Right.
what you're into.
gotcha.
But you know,
All right, so I'm curious to kind of, you know, take us back a second.
sure.
You know, you talked about, you know, playing games or running games in the bookstore. Is that when you made the transition to the DM chair?
As opposed to just being an armchair D&D nerd
Yeah,
or
like when? Well,
master.
yeah. I mean, let me just be general. Like, when did you start DMing? Was it from the jump? Like, as soon as you got a group together, were you the forever DM from that point on?
Yeah, I started running game sessions that would immediately fall apart because we became disinterested and then would pick up another story. Like we would play 2 sessions whenever we had time in middle school. And then, you know, we'd put it down and start doing something else. Like, you know, you'd get halfway through a Sailor Moon adventure and then
Right, but you were the guy.
played
right?
Rope. But I was the dungeon master.
You were the guy who was
I
running.
was- Every time.
I was the one running the games 100%.
Got it.
Ooh,
Yeah.
forever DM.
Yeah, and it's a case, I mean, you know, that you had sort of said that you are sort of a forever DM, that you tend to DM a lot, that you haven't played in a ton of games. You told me that was very interesting at one point. Like you said that I was an abysmal murder hobo, like as a player, and I'm curious about that. That's an interesting self-appellation.
That I was an abysmal murder hobo.
Yeah, you told me that once.
I think I said I would likely be an abysmal murder hobo.
Okay,
just because.
Gotcha. Because you don't play a lot.
Because I don't play a lot, and it would probably. I said that probably for two reasons.
Okay.
One, because I have pent up anger issues with murder hobos showing up at my table, and it was a way for me to express that frustration in a healthy means at the table. Two is probably because I was a little drunk, which at the convention, once like 4 p.m. rolled around, I was definitely no less than 3 beers deep the whole time. So
that's hilarious.
I guess there's our screen grab, the thumbnail. Baron, I'm an abysmal murder hobo.
Yeah,
I'm likely an abysmal.
Murder hobo. But you've done 3 game sessions with me. I think you can judge for yourself whether or not
you're not.
Murder hobo.
You're not. I just thought it was funny that you described yourself that way.
Oh yeah.
So walk us through some of the favorite games. I think maybe first starting some of the favorite games you played in, and then tell us some of the favorite games that you've DM'd. Because it's those stories that stick in your mind, those shared experiences with your pals.
Right.
What are some of the standouts?
So I've played in as a player, 1 game of Old School Essentials, 3 games of Index Card RPG.
Oh man, it's low and he can count.
Did I play in a game of 5th edition? I don't think I've played in a game of 5th. No, I've played in 4 sessions of 5th edition, and it was one of my players I was encouraging to start dungeon mastering, and she started dungeon mastering, and I was a player in her campaign. You've
actually done 4 ICRPG, 3 with me and 1 with Damien.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Well, I forgot one of one of yours barely counts because I came in with 40 minutes left in the session.
You finished her out.
And then the rest was 3rd edition. That was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What were some of the standouts? What are some of the stories or moments that and you can push my games into the dumpster pile where they belong.
No, I was actually going to say your games would likely be the standouts, just because of the really weird way that you push initiative as like a turn-based mechanic. Like you really gamify initiative to force pressure or a sense of pressure in the game that may or may not actually need to be there in any other particular gaming system. And it's really interesting to me how well that pressure of initiative does it, because there's a sensation, and to be clear for our viewers here, what I mean by that is the game starts and everybody rolls initiative. There's no combat. You're just rolling initiative and you get 2 actions to do your thing. Like you move and do an action and that's all you get. And it's on to the next person in initiative. And what makes that really interesting is that it becomes very apparent at the beginning of the session that something is wrong immediately in the start of the game session, and you don't know exactly what it is, but you only have so many actions before somebody figures out what that thing is. So you better have done the maximum things possible to set yourself up for success before the bad thing happens. And by starting the game in initiative in that way, it reinforces that. So that's really interesting. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I like to think of it as sort of a very cinematic type of style. Like I love putting people in action and letting things bigger than themselves kind of press them into becoming, heroes. Like I love that. But anyway, that's an aside.
Right. Your interpretation of when we talk about West End Star Wars, you we will talk about our different disparaging definitions of cinematic.
A disagreement.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's good. And then I played with a dungeon master whose nickname was Crotch. There's a whole backstory there.
Well, there's definitely a backstory there.
And can we get him on our show?
I don't really talk to him anymore.
You don't just get named Crotch on accident.
Yeah, right.
There's always a story there.
It was like you messed something up bad.
Yeah,
Like,
no. I played with him. He's the dungeon master I've probably played the longest with, and he played 3rd edition, and he hated playing at less than 10th level because he felt like it ruined his options of what he could get away with as a dungeon master, or not necessarily get away with. That's the wrong way to put it. But it limited what he could do, what he could throw at the players. Because once you hit 10th level, especially in 3rd edition, like there's nothing you can't handle. Like the power level difference between a 10th level and a 20th level character is honestly not that different.
Yeah.
You know,
Right,
so
you got a couple more hit points at 20.
Yeah, like who cares? So he just would let you make a character that was loaded up with gobsmacks of magic items, and you were 10th level build of whatever the heck you wanted, and go to town. You know, solve the problem, save the world. And I learned from that game. That was probably the best educational experience I had as a dungeon master for just ignoring the concept of challenge rating and how much you actually can push at the players.
Right.
You know, they're like the dice are much more forgiving than people would like to admit.
Mm-hmm. Here's a fun fact. I've never used the challenge rating system ever.
And you shouldn't.
Ever. It's terrible.
You shouldn't.
Nope.
Yeah. You don't need it.
Fine. Yeah.
Challenge rating seems like it was built as protection for cowards. Get that freaking dragon out. I don't care if it's 1st or 2nd level. Bring the dragon.
I just recorded a video today. I'm late because I'm coming off of a flu. I just recorded a video today talking about how challenger, like I had a video I published 6 months ago talking about how, you know, you shouldn't use challenge rating because it's silly, basically. But then I realized that that's unhelpful to freshman dungeon masters who the only experience they have in the Dungeon Master's Guide for assistance in like encounter design is challenge rating in the XP budget. Like that's all you get. So I was like, wait a minute. I went back and reread the Advanced Dungeon Master's Guide for 1st edition, and I was like, there's no challenge rating here, but in Appendix J, there's a list of all these recommended encounters that you can roll up to put in your dungeon. Boom. Why is this not in for? So I rewrote that, you know, I rewrote all the dungeon encounters for 5th edition, and that's a video that's probably out by the time you people that are watching this video are watching that. You go check out my channel if you want to download.
Go check it out.
Check it out. Probably live by then.
Interesting.
But like in 1st edition, they realized it was a problem. Like players need a little bit of handholding when they first get started. Yeah, so here's a little bit of handholding. But once you do it for about 6 months, like you've got it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just say from my standpoint, like I just boil it down to like I want the threat to be sort of equal to the party. Like equal in terms of hit points, equal in terms of 2-hit bonus, equal in terms of rolls, equal in terms of target. Like, you know, if the PCs all have about 12 armor class, like I want the target, you know, to be for them to be about 12. Like I want to keep that sort of parity between the monsters and the players. That's sort of how I just kind of do it. I've always sort of done it that way. But I'm also not afraid, as Joe pointed out, just be like, yeah, your face is the beholder. Good luck.
Right?
Because
the bat.
Figure it out or don't. Not my problem.
Yeah, because players are way craftier than, you know, the book and this sort of framework gives them. They're way more creative. B,
and just to dogpile onto that A point there, there's usually 4 brains in the players.
Absolutely.
Versus just you. Yeah.
Dungeon Master. And even if you're, you know, a big brain IQ 75 Einstein over here, there's still 4 of them over there. Yeah. You can't be more creative than 4 of them. But anyway, go ahead.
Yep. Perfect. Yes, exactly. They're going to find a way, A. B, they're going to have something in their bag of tricks. Like, I don't care if it's, like a vial of smelling salts, if it's a weird padlock. Like, they're going to have some weird thing that you're not going to anticipate. Like, oh yeah, I've got this like super sticky glue, and now all your monsters are stuck. It's like, oh my god, like they will find a way, through their creativity, through their little bag of tricks, to sort of overcome. And at the end of the day, they can always run. I get that players aren't generally geared towards running, but they do have avenues, and usually they find a way to overcome the challenge, almost always.
So, even when that challenge is, or when the solution is running, because when that dragon is big enough that it blots out the sun as it's approaching, you suddenly remember that you've got a fucking rune stone that you can just call the name of and teleport back to, and it's like 400 miles away from where this dragon is. And,
exactly.
Yep. They do that
from
kind
experience.
Of stuff.
Players will do that.
Joe did that to me, and I was like, "Oh, you dirty rasm frasm."
Oh yeah. The dragon was too big.
Yeah.
There was just 3 of us.
Yeah. God, I had another good point, but
sorry, my bad.
That's okay. No. But in any event, players always find a way to overcome your challenges. Yeah. Oh, I know what it was. I've learned this the hard way through, DMing for a long time, and that is I almost always have a backup plan. If the players die, if the players wipe, like I almost always have a plan if something really starts to go, south. And so, with that kind of in my back pocket, I don't DM from a place of fear. And I think a lot of players who are new, who grasp on tightly to CR or whatever, like a life raft, usually they're DMing from a place of fear. Like, I don't want to kill these guys the first night. Conversely, I don't want it to be too easy, where they just kind of crush through everything. I would just say, make it easy to start out, and if they crush through it, then just slowly ramp up your difficulty.
Turn the dial up.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
something that I do when I play 5th edition, which, secret 5th edition is one of my favorite RPGs. I know, right?
What?
Wild. When I play 5th edition, when the characters hit 5th level, as soon as they get access to Fireball, I max out enemy hit points. Like, there's the recommended hit points in the monster manual. Whatever, I instead where it says 8d12 plus 30 or something, I'm like 8 times 12 plus 30 is how many hit points they have.
Yep. Yeah. Well, so that kind of leads us maybe to one of our next questions, which what is your favorite game system? Like, is there one?
Ooh. Right? Is
and
it
why?
a thing you can choose?
Yeah, is it
My favorite game system does not exist
yet.
Thank you, honey. My wife is bringing me hot tea. I'm still coming off of a flu. She's wonderful and she's been wonderful and taking care of me all week.
Well, you know what? If you've already recorded a video today and then you're spending your afternoon talking with us, your wife
she helped me record it as well.
She is a saint, man.
I know. She is a saint. Let's see. I keep joking and I'm tell her that she's going to sit in my chair one day and do a video as the Baroness. But yes. No. So my favorite RPG system is somewhere between like the odd likes, like Cairn and Mouse Ritter those are great. I love how modular that system is. I don't like how non-tactical combat can be. I want combat to be a bit more crunchy, which is why I love 5th edition. I really like how crunchy combat is in West End Star Wars, because it is appropriately crunchy, but the system is not crunchy. Correct, it's very easy with a dice pool system to figure out how many dice I need to roll in this given situation. It's like, my perception is this, my blaster pistol skill is this, I'm hiding behind cover and he's wearing armor, and roll. Right. You're just adding up all the dice and you roll, and then they roll, and then there you go, and then you figure out how many wounds you have. And that's cool. I want the modularity and like the glog spells that come along with Mouse Ritter, and I want the crunchy combat and a little bit more character durability that you get with West End Star Wars. I feel like somewhere in between those, there's a game system that doesn't exist yet that I want to play.
You're gonna have to write it, man.
I know.
You're just gonna have to do it.
I ain't got time for that.
Whatever. I know you got time for it.
I'm working on so many other things.
Man of leisure over there. I mean, seriously, you probably should at some point write your own.
Maybe at some point, yeah.
Your ideal system. Then let Joe and me know. We'll hype it and we'll buy it and we'll play it.
Okay.
And all right, give your honest critique.
Okay. But yeah, that's what I want. So West End Star Wars is great. Index Card RPG is a really good dungeon crawler. I feel like if you could just throw in like a stress system, not like Mothership stress system. If you could throw in a stress system that could get you a feel close to like the Darkest Dungeon video games, then I feel like that would be awesome. That would be real slick.
I want to come back to that for a second.
Okay. I feel like Index Card RPG as it stands right now is a perfect execution of like the grim cartoon adventure video game type deal. Like it feels like you're playing Legend of Zelda in the best way. And it's what it, all these editions, 3rd, 4th, and 5th have all tried to be an MMO, and you can't do that. Like you've missed the boat. But if you had tried to do Legend of Zelda, that was more approachable, except that I don't think that they could have done it properly. Index Card RPG did Legend of Zelda perfectly. So that's like, you can tell that kind of story with ICRPG much easier than any other RPG I know of on the market.
Interesting. That's interesting.
I
would call it very cinematic instead of video gamey, but
right down, Hackles down.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you.
Kidding.
Yeah,
like full cloth. I think that we'll come to that conversation.
Yeah. You can set me straight.
Yeah.
With something far more enlightening than I've thought about. So.
we probably just have different definitions of cinematic, is all it is.
Yeah. I'm just a very scene-based DM. Like when I think about it,
yeah,
like I'm thinking about these moments that kind of grip you.
Yeah.
But I digress. I've hijacked this.
No. I think somewhere between West End Star Wars and
Mouse
Ritter, there is a game that I want to play that doesn't exist.
Okay.
West End Oddworld.
Yeah, exactly.
So, we had this long talk about this at Jeff Con about West End games, Star Wars, and how great it is. Both from, I think, the easy accessibility in terms of making a character, like you find this cool template right in the back, and even if that's not quite your vision, right, it's not hard to create one like it or to make your own or to sort of modify one, right?
For sure.
Grab a template and go, pretty much. Then you're exactly right. The dice mechanic, the core mechanic is super easy to grok. It's super accessible. And then you're also right. It has this sort of tactical level of combat, or frankly even other challenges. But I don't know that I've ever found another game where combat feels so dire. Like where those 1 or 2 blaster hits really make a difference, because then you lose dice.
For sure. Right. Yeah. You're getting penalized every time you get hit.
Right.
Every time you take a wound, you're getting negative penalties to your game system. And that's just something that the Star Wars or that the West End D6 system did really well. Like I did a homebrew, like weird Wild West RPG where like there was hoodoo shamans and like escaped Haitian slaves from a plantation, went out to Texas, and they had like magic powers and stuff like that. That was very similar to the Force. It was but like it was really good at that kind of low fantasy power. I think that's why it worked so well with the Ghostbusters system as well.
Gotcha. Right.
Because it's all the same system under the hood.
Yeah.
But where was I going with that point? I can't remember. What were we talking about?
Why is West End Games like the best game ever?
Oh, I think it's because it makes it very clear and visceral how much of a downward spiral your character is experiencing while it's experiencing it without being overtly crunchy about it. It obfuscates that downward spiral in a very approachable way, if that makes sense. Like,
totally.
You got hit in the arm. Well, that's -1 to all your dice rolls. You get hit in the leg. Okay, that's another -2 to your dice rolls,
Right.
It just obfuscates. You don't have to worry about like checking like which arm you got hit in and checking to see if like you don't have to get. There's rules for it that are optional if you want to, but nobody plays that way. You get -2 to your penalty when you take 2 wounds and then you go.
Right. Quick and easy.
It's very good, and that's really what it is. It's very good at obfuscating the things that should be obfuscating to keep the game moving, but still honors the fact that those things happen in a way that would impact your character in a crunchy way or the environment in a crunchy way.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's somehow both crunchy and it's granola and Jello at the same time, but without being gross or anything.
Well, so you met Xander at Jeff Con.
Yes.
He is part of our little sort of DM circle. And old Hankerin was just like, "Hey, we're gonna play D6 Star Wars," and he was just like, "Xander, you're up, you run it," and he was like, he had never read it, he'd never looked at it, he'd certainly never run it before.
A cold read and like a cold skim read of it in 30 minutes, and you're damn near an expert,
Right, and he
killed it.
He crushed it. Like, it was so much fun. But I've come to a point here. Our Wookiee in the group, who was our tank, because he had so many hits.
Oh man!
Like, by the end of it, like I don't think he could walk across the map. Like, he was so like he was just like, he's like, well, the target is 12, and like I only
got
have one
-5 dice on my melee
roll, so like I'll never hit this ever.
Right.
That kind of stuff. It was just.
It was wild watching that. That was a crazy death spiral.
Yeah, it was.
And that's what it's good at. It's good at really highlighting the crazy death spiral when it starts to happen. And I think the what's to kind of play back into that is the force dice mechanic, where you can spend a force point and turn all of your dice pool into wild dice at that cinematic moment. Like, yes, you've been beat up. Yes, you're in the middle of the death spiral. Yes, you are Luke Skywalker in the trench run about to shoot the photon torpedoes, but you're just a junior pilot. You might be good back on Tatooine, but you're just a junior pilot.
Womp rats don't shoot back.
Womp rats don't shoot back. You've got your father. You don't know who's your father right behind you shooting at you. You've watched your entire team get blown to smithereens all around you. And your droid is totally beat up. Your ship is fried, damn near fried at this point. You can't repair it. So yes, I'm gonna spend the point. This is the moment, and if it doesn't work, it won't work ever. And that's what I mean by the cinematic reinforcement. Like, the fact that you realize that you're still on the death spiral, and then arbitrarily decide that this is the moment that the plot has to stick, and I'm gonna flip the switch on the DM and give them the middle finger, and now I get all my dice back, or
because
Right?
you've
I'm
never
spending my force point. Cool. The space trucker shows up out of nowhere and takes a shot. Now you're
Exactly.
lined up and you're doubling all your dice. Go for it.
Exactly.
well
exactly.
because you've never practiced with this targeting computer. Like this thing's just weird. Like in your eye, like you shut
Exactly.
it down, and literally in our games, whenever somebody's like, it's time. I've got to use the force point. Like the whole table's like, da da da
Nope.
da da.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like the whole table's humming it, right? Because it's
Yeah,
that
yeah.
moment. Yeah. So maybe we do have a different definition of cinematic.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just going to be over here.
You know, that's not to say that like your definition of cinematic in that like I think what you mean, because you're a very scene based
Yeah.
DM, like your adventures are completely contained within a small dungeon, effectively, at least the ones that I've run with you. And I would imagine your style is very reflective of that.
Yeah.
Even in a larger campaign, it's a series of those, I would imagine. Am I wrong?
No, I mean Joe's probably the best guess because he's
Right.
played in a ton
Okay.
of my games. I mean, I would
So-
say that's true. Like I
Okay.
look at some of these precise story beats and some of these precise moments. Like I want players to have certain experiences.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like I want Buffy to fight, the master. Like I want that scene in
Exactly.
there somewhere. Like I want Buffy, to take on the giant snake at the Hellmouth. Like those things in the course of the campaign have to happen at some point. Everything else in
Sure.
between I don't care about to a degree.
Right.
But these story beats have to
Those
happen.
beats and moments.
You know,
But in the process of getting up to that point, what I find that you define as the cinematic experience is the tight action sequence
well, sure.
of events that leads up to that moment.
Well, sure, because I'm an old man and I'm going to be stone dead in a moment. So how I choose to spend my time is very precious, and I don't like to mess around. So
Right.
I don't care.
Right.
I don't care that Buffy does her homework and that she brushes her teeth and that she grabs a banana and walks to the park. Like
Right.
that sort of mundane stuff, I don't have any time for. Like I watch Critical Role sometimes. I'm like, they spent 2 hours talking to a gate guard. I'm like, to what end? Like that needs
Exactly.
To,
Yeah.
Like let's skip that mundane stuff and let's get right to the moment that Buffy rolls up on the park and some teenagers being bitten in the neck. Like now we have something compelling and something worthwhile, and that's where I want to spend our focus and our time together.
Right.
I just don't.
That makes sense.
I'm just I'm a busy employee. I'm a busy husband. I'm a busy dad. I'm a busy everything. I don't have a ton of time anymore to spend, and so when we can get together at the table, I want to hit these awesome moments that people are going to tell stories about later. Like
Right.
We don't
I'm
want to
never,
spend an hour shopping.
Yeah, I'm never the sort of DM who's just like, I really don't have anything prepped for tonight. Like, I think I'm just going to roll randomly and we'll do some travel. Like, ooh, that's like if you do that, I'm really sorry, but I think that's terrible. Like, don't do that to your players.
What's funny is that is how I DM, but after like 20 years of experience DMing that way, you get to a point where every time they travel, it's interesting in that way. Like what you're describing, it's like, I don't know exactly what you're going to come across yet, but when we get there, it will be terrifying.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I think that's different. Baron, because there is the DM out there, and listen, I've broken every rule that I'm decrying now.
Yeah.
Right? But there is that DM out there who's just like, okay, does something happen? Nope.
Oh gosh.
Does something else happen? Nope.
Yeah.
Okay, no, we have 20 more of these. Hold on.
Right. Like I'll ask myself that question, but I'm grabbing like 12 D20s and rolling them all at once, analyzing the situation. And it's like they get 3 more rolls. But like I'm just, you gotta move. You gotta keep it moving. If you're gonna do that, you gotta keep it moving.
Because meanwhile, as a player, right, I'm like, oh look, I stacked 4 of these.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, I stacked all 7 before one topple.
If they get beyond that 4th dice in the stack, if they can complete the RPG dice tower, you spent too much time.
Exactly. Yeah,
Right?
for sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And my standpoint, I mean, you're exactly right. I don't want people to even start stacking at all. Like I want them to be way too busy and immersed and focused on what's like these big events that are happening, And I think I hope you would say that was your experience in the Alien Cargo game.
Oh, 100%.
For
100%.
sure, and that that it felt like a movie would
Yeah.
be would be my hope.
You were asking me about favorite RPG, and I glanced by it real quick, but you saying Alien Cargo reminded me. Mothership is
Good.
definitely top tier.
I had that written down.
And it is only because I love the kind of story it tells that is so radically different from the normal way I dungeon master. It forces me to DM in a very different way, and I like that.
Okay. Yeah, that's
cool.
great. Well, funny story. I have never run or played in a Mothership game.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to
You've
do
given
it.
it a cool read, though, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've read it. I love the character creation and how simple it is. I love the one-page rules. So what is it like is it like the haunting on Epsilon 4 or whatever? Like, isn't there?
The haunting on Epsilon 14. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that
great? It's a great intro.
One of the trifolds, right?
Yeah, it's the yellow trifold. Yeah.
Yep. And there's like that creature that's that come out of the ooze or whatever, and it's around that. Having played in some of my games, that's my kind of story.
Yeah.
Like 1,000,000%. I would love to play in that.
Yeah,
I'll run it for you sometime.
I had fun with Mothership. I played in a couple games. I've looked through it. Using their rule set, a buddy of mine actually wrote a game. Or using that rule set. I mean, obviously modified to fit with the the more thematic elements of his game, Tales from the Gordon Act. But I played a bit of Mothership. It was fun. It was a good twist.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks
I want to try playing it in a longer campaign and see how it stacks up, because I'm not sure that it. I don't know. I want to try it in a longer campaign and see how it goes, because
I have no experience for that.
Yeah,
we literally, it was a couple one shots that I played of Mothership, and then a few one shots. I think there was one of them that was like a 2-shot kind of ran together,
right?
In my buddy's thing, but it was that system. But I've really only done the one shots. They're somewhere on the internet.
So this might be a good time to talk about stress mechanics.
Okay.
Ooh, right.
And then maybe I also want to talk about, because I think, Baron, you and I had this conversation where you would say, hey, this system lends itself towards this type of experience.
Yes.
And I disagree with that to an extent, because I think somewhere between where the rules are written, there's a whole lot of pieces that are controlled by a DM. So you could say, well, something like maybe Mothership isn't written for longer campaigns, and I'm like, well, if you have the right DM, I think like any system could be long campaigns. So I want to come back to that, but first I want to talk about stress mechanics, because what you said, ICRPG, it would be great if it had a sort of a stress mechanic. Old Hankard does have an adventure Beneath the Door that does feature a stress mechanic.
Oh, that's cool. I haven't seen that.
It's like a like 1900s pulp, maybe.
The game.
Oh, that's cool.
With a bit of a Cthulhu twist to it at the end, which is pretty cool. But I don't know. Like, I think stress mechanics seem like a good idea in theory. Like, you're like, hey, somewhere mechanically, I'm going to make a roll, or the player's going to have to make a save, or there's going to have to be something, and then there's some sort of mounting consequence with fear. Blacklight, or aka Delta Green, kind of has this sort of stress mechanic where you take stress damage. I always think those ideas seem like a great idea in theory, but then at the table, I often find them to be more immersion breaking than actually just having the player sort of experience these moments organically. But I would be curious on your take, because
interesting.
You really are the RPG deep thinker here and the critical analyst.
There's been a couple. I mean, Call of Cthulhu obviously has. Mothership's got the stress.
Mothership, the Alien RPG. Like, I think I wish I
could remember the name of this game. There's one game I played where the system was literally built on that stress mechanic. Like, that was the core system. You just had.
Are you sure you're not talking about? It's a D6 system. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you got a single D6, and it came down to situations where, like, when the thing happened, you were kind of asked, does this affect your character? Is he afraid of this, or is he not? Are they not afraid of this? And if it was yes, then you added a point. Now you're at 1. You roll your dice. You want to roll higher than your number. So like it's built on that stress, and other situations happen, yes, this one, no, that one, yes, this one. And you get up, all of a sudden you're at 5. And anytime you have to make your dice roll, you want to roll over your number. Like I just rolled a 1, boom, that's like death.
I
like that's it. Like the terror, everything got to you and you are now dead.
I would just say
I don't remember what the game system was. It was like walk in the woods or something like that.
Okay.
I would just say I'm
stress mechanic stuff, I guess.
I'm forever in search of the right stress mechanic that doesn't detract or take away from the game. And I also find, to a degree, sometimes some of the outcomes are kind of silly. And ultimately, if I ever go down that road of implementing a stress mechanic, I usually find myself abandoning it at some point, maybe during the course of a campaign, just because it just almost never seems to do justice to those moments in the fiction. It just seems so artificial to me.
Is that in the sense of like I guess kind of like a system telling you that you have to behave this way? Is
correct?
Yeah.
Correct. I find that tension between the two.
Right.
Like I would almost rather say, hey Joe, like make your save, like a quick pass fail binary check in that moment.
Yeah.
And then if Joe fails, leave it up to Joe to describe in that moment of the fiction, where his character's head is at, and then let it sort of develop from there, and let us all sort of, kind of play off of it, almost.
Okay.
I would almost rather see that, but Baron, you're our guest. I'd be curious for your thoughts on it.
So, I'm not gonna say that like you are wrong. You're not.
Right.
I probably am, but
you're not wrong. I think you're not wrong in the fact that you in kind of the same Freikriegsspiel Revolution school, that they aren't wrong that you don't need rules to play an RPG. And what I mean by that is, take a look at, like, let's go back to the argument of the OS, or like, what is the OSR, right? And then you look at Knave, and it's like, this is the definition of what everyone can actually agree on is the OSR. It's the baseline starting place.
Gotcha.
And then everything else is bolted on top of that. So, if you don't need some kind of prompt to artificially tell you what to do, then you also don't need some kind of prompt to tell you that your character is skilled with shooting guns. But we insist that those things are there in a sci-fi game. You don't need some kind of prompt to know how strong or smart or fast your character is, but we still have ability scores in the game, or perception, or whatever. So you're not wrong that that you don't need those things. However, I find that by having some kind of prompt, it does two things. The game itself, the system itself, can help guide and establish and push the general motif of the narrative in a particular direction that the game designer intended. And that kind of gets into what exactly did the game designer intend for Panic to look like in the confines of this game.
Gotcha.
And that might be a very different thing than what a particular player at the table might insist is their kind of Panic. And that's not to say that the game designer is wrong or the player is wrong, but by kowtowing to a game designer's insistence of what Panic should be, then we all agree that this is what Panic actually looks like as a definition within this game system.
Right.
If that makes sense. So,
it totally does. I mean, it's like you need a gameable way to express, that specific inclination, I guess.
Right. Like some players are just not as creative. and need a prompt in order to lubricate those things. And I was having an interesting conversation with Kelsey at what is it, the Arcane Library.
We love Kelsey.
And this was earlier while I was still having like fever, like I had like a high fever while I had the flu earlier this week, and I just went on a tear. And I was like, it is absolutely dishonest for an OSR dungeon master to tell a player that the solution is not on their character sheet, that the solution is in the game world, when we as OSR dungeon masters, we pick up 17 copies of Knock and all these different zines and all these blogs and pull all these inspirational ideas into our game and then roll on all of these ridiculous random tables in order to create monsters and game settings and magic spells and God knows what else in our game. But all of that stuff that we are using for inspiration is the stuff that ends up in our game. It becomes the campaign character sheet, if you will.
Right.
Why is it not appropriate for a player to take inspiration from a random table that they got to roll on whenever their character freaks out, when we are doing the same thing as dungeon masters for the development of our campaign setting writ large?
Right. If that makes sense. Yeah, no, totally does.
Alex is like, oh,
I hate random tables. I hate it. Like I love it when people are purposeful about things, and I despise some of that randomness sometimes. Except when you're rolling for loot, and then it's great.
I love a random table. I'm on the other side of that. Like I do like purposeful things. I love it when things are purposeful, but I love a random table. I have books that are literally just random tables. Like you open it up, any single page, it's just random tables, the whole book. I love them.
I think because I used to go back and forth about random tables. And I think what really irked me about most random tables is that they're bad.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly,
yeah.
And I don't think people quite understand that whatever you roll up, and this sounds so elementary when you say it out loud, but I don't think people grok it really, is that whatever you roll or whatever is in the random table is what shows up in your game.
Yeah.
So if you're building a random table, you have to be very dutiful about what specifically you're putting in the random table. And a well-crafted random table allows you to express a multiplicity of ideas that you may not otherwise have come up with on your own organically, but they're still your ideas and you're just piecing them together ad hoc later. If that makes sense.
Well, I would say two pieces, right? So one, I agree. I think for a random table to be worthwhile, it does have to have that purposefulness baked in from the outset, because otherwise you end up with some really wonky results.
100%.
And then B, and I'm not knocking this if you prefer to play that way. I just feel like if you're rolling randomly to create, say, an encounter for the night, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's DM hard mode a little bit, because otherwise, if you're not weaving these things together in a certain way, I've been doing this long enough. I feel the gears slipping, like if it doesn't mesh well, like if you're just throwing something together, like I feel the gears slipping to a degree, and that's immersion breaking for me. Like it's just like, oh. Right. Like, wait a minute, like what just happened? Like now we're fighting harpies. Like, where did that come from? Like, like we're in the sea. Like what? Right. What is happening?
You're giving yourself the opportunity to fight harpies if you're on a boat in the middle of the ocean.
Well, I do it.
I mean, like we're underwater.
I do it. It's a flock of harpy gulls.
Yeah.
Right. Like
harpy gulls. Oh
like,
God.
Why? Yeah. Like why? I can understand if giant shark showed up, but now.
Right.
That sort of feeling. Like many times I feel the gear slipping when that happens. I think to execute that well, and there are people who can do it. I'm just not one of them. I think you have to be you have to have super good table, and you have to be super experienced in your craft.
Yeah, that's almost explicitly how I dungeon master. So
I did start. I did start.
Well, are you that good, Baron? Are you that good?
I would like to think I'm that good.
Right. Yeah, I started as just kind of full improv, because kind of a similar situation. Single mom, did not funds were not a whole big thing.
Right.
3 kids, single mom. So a lot of the time it was just improv because couldn't buy any like all of like the adventure modules and everything. We just had a player's handbook, and then eventually Dungeon Master's Guide. And so like it was a lot of just making shit up on the fly, making stuff up on the fly.
Yeah.
So I
for
think
sure.
I kind of like I kind of learned or leaned into and learned how to use those random tables to just kind of go like with a lot more improv style.
Right.
And then a lot of theater background, like all through high school and everything. Like, so improv was kind of, I guess, became like a second nature, but like I had to learn how to speak that language to kind of translate and be able to run with everything, which
Right.
I think is part of the reason why even games, when I do have a purposeful structure and things set, I'd like to think that I'm really good at just going along with, like, if a player does something that's so off the books that I didn't plan for, that I can kind of incorporate and move along with that as now a part of it. Like, I'd like to think that I'm fairly all right at that.
Well,
But I think that comes from that into the whole hobby, that upbringing and the hobby of using these random tables and kind of having to stitch things together on the fly.
Right.
well, and I think there's a distinction too. I mean, I might use a random table to generate ideas
Mm-hmm.
and use those to plan for a session.
And that's how they should be used.
But it's still going to be carefully planned. I think. I
You
think
do it at the table.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
Yeah, don't plan at the table unless you're like,
Hey,
unless you have a table or unless you have a random table specifically designed for stitching together a quick scaffolded plan. You know,
I've got 2 videos. My very neglected YouTube channel. One of them I ran Lamentations of the Flame Princess. The other one I ran Into the Odd. Both of those games I used the Axebane's deck of many dungeons. And literally, as we were playing, like, I had the deck all shuffled. The players could not see the map. It was all theater of the mind, because each of the cards, not only does it have the dungeon shape, but it has little roll tables on it. So I was literally, as we were going, like, I'd draw a card, and when they, I'd roll whatever was on there, and that was kind of what was happening. And when they left that map zone, if they went to explore, I drew the next card and placed it there.
oh my gosh.
And I ran it completely off the cards improv.
Yeah.
wow.
It didn't skip a beat. Like, they were like surprisingly really fun. Like, they have more views than I honestly expected, which is weird, but it's all neglected
Yeah.
stuff. But like I said, I mean, that came from the start, growing up and going that way. So I kind of had like almost a familiarity in throwing it together, like right on the fly.
Right.
But again,
Wow.
these tables were all like, like you'd roll it, and it's like, not full sentences or paragraphs for the definitions of these tables. It's like, here's a thing of smells. This is what's visible. So like, they're all short, quick prompts that I was able to like roll, look at, and go right into. I mean, so
Yeah.
it was much more than that. Like, I didn't need to roll on smells if anybody's like, well, I don't want to smell it. Like, if a player's like, what's down there, kind of thing, or can I hear
Butterscotch.
anything?
Yeah.
Right? No, yeah. No, I guess these were a little bit more purposely designed, but not super tailored. Because there was a moment where like they turned the corner in this dungeon, and it's like, there are 3 ogres hunched over the carcass of a pile of rats or something. It's like, and now they are noticing you as you come around the corner. So it's like, what the fuck are 3 ogres doing in this dungeon that is
Super gonzo.
forever?
Yeah,
But it happens, and people die.
Yeah.
Well-
But to get back to your original question
Yeah,
here about panic systems.
Yep.
Tangent, my bad.
Yeah, no, it's fine. We all tangented.
This is great.
I think that if the panic system is executed well, then it will reinforce verisimilitude
Okay.
or
Yep.
the believability at the table.
Right.
If it's not done well, then that's a failure on the game design, if that makes sense.
Right.
And I've never been in a situation where I felt like Mothership, and I've run it at least a dozen times at this point. I've never been in a one-shot encounter relationship with, or in a situation with Mothership where the apparent panic prompt that a character rolled up felt unwarranted
Okay.
at the table, and not even close. Because and the way the Mothership panic system is designed, for people who aren't aware or who aren't familiar, the dungeon master is constantly asking you to make fear saves, sanity saves, various kinds of saves every time you interact with something that could be remotely unsettling.
Yep.
And generally speaking, nothing is actually bad going to happen just because you failed. You just get stressed out. And the stress just slowly builds. Like you see some weird space mushrooms that you don't think should exist here. Give me a fear save. You failed. It stresses you out a little bit. That's all that happens.
Mm-hmm.
But over the course of the adventure, you're slowly being warmed up to this thing. Eventually you're going to see the xenomorph. Eventually the bad thing is going to happen. And when that happens, that's about the time, if you plan your adventure correctly, that's about the time that people's stress should get to the point that it causes their character to panic. Gotcha. And the first person that panics, they got to roll on the panic check system and take one of the prompts that they get. And there's certain abilities where you can roll twice and choose whichever one you want. But when you take a panic, it makes sense in the moment, generally speaking. Like nobody is ever going to like fail the panic system so badly in Mothership that you get off the ship, you realize that I am completely in a white space station, and I suddenly realize that everything is a white copy of itself, and I am living in a facsimile of reality, and then my character panics and they have a heart attack and die. Right. That is not going to happen within the game design of the situation. You just get a little uncomfortable, Yeah. It's like it's like the front door of Ex Machina, like you scan your card and the guy who comes on the intercom is really weird and says some unsettling things. Give me a sanity save. Yeah. You failed it. You're a little more stressed out now. Yeah. So, anyway, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so I'm still forever in search of a really good stress or fear mechanic. Leave a comment below and tell me your favorite one, because I'm still forever searching for the one that's going to be easy to implement, and that's going to, and I think verisimilitude is a great word that helps add to the verisimilitude and doesn't detract from it.
The only other one that I would say is as good as Motherships and kind of harkens back to the kind of stress system that I think you would like to see that would be more approachable for you, Alex, is Fate Cores, which is have you played Fate Core at all, by the way?
I have not. I have the book. I have the book. I've read it. It's back there somewhere.
So it's back there somewhere.
Yeah. So I don't have 6. Like I counted up in your bookcase. You've got 6.
I've got all of them.
Yeah, I'm
got 100% collector people. So anyway, when your character takes some kind of, I can't remember what it's been so long since I've played Fate, but you take air quote damage. It's not really damage. You start striking off various checkboxes to represent how much damage your character can burn through. And you have different tracks, physical track and a mental track, right? And depending on it's the game system super modular, so you can have multiple tracks if you want it, or it's all compressed into one track. But you could hypothetically have a stress track of how much stress your character can endure. Mm-hmm. And then once you clear out the track, you start taking on consequences, is what they're called. Gotcha. And you as the player have to decide, I'm going to name the consequence as like an attribute of my character now. And now that is a fixed institution on my character sheet. And if I decide I have this phobia now because of this thing, the dungeon master can abuse my character with it. They can invoke that attribute as something to hurt my character in an RP experience later on down the road.
Yeah, and similarly, you can, as the player, invoke it for different effects. Yeah. I mean, also for the story beats down the line.
Right.
But you can purposely push on that, for your own benefit as well.
Right.
Even if it brings terror and misery to your character.
I think one of the ones that Hanker hit on pretty early, it might be the one in Beneath the Door, I can't recall, but one of the ones that he hit on is basically like a 3-pip system. The first pip, you're kind of a little bit uneasy. The second pip kind of stresses you out more, and then that third pip, like you're kind of ready to break, and
Right.
and then consequences happen. But I do like the
Yeah.
idea that then the player chooses like what that new tag or what that new effect or consequence is. I really like
Mhm.
that. As an
Yeah,
outcome.
I believe Beneath the Door used, like you had a standard heart, and you kind of, almost took it as like a psychic damage.
Gotcha.
If I remember right, once you got up to 10, it was like game over. Like you are a gibbering ball of goo. Like you are not an effective hero anymore. Like you need to be retired into a ward because you drool on
Gotcha.
yourself and laugh when the lights come on.
I'm thinking
Kind
of
of
one
a
of Hank.
situation.
Must be thinking of one of Hankron's videos then, because I know.
Right? Yeah, I think the 3 pips did come after the fact.
Gotcha.
It was kind of almost like clean or more clean, I guess you could say.
So I think we've maybe beaten this. I do want to jump ahead to a new topic here, if that's
Sure.
okay with everyone, because I think we've been remiss here in not giving you a chance, Baron, to talk about Dungeon Masterpiece.
Okay.
And kind of like what is it? What is the aim? Tell us the origins, like how you decided to make a channel and to make a website.
I'll start up the harpsichord music in the background.
Yeah, exactly. No.
Da, 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 da.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I can't even remember the name of that piece. French Renaissance piece, but starts with an R. I can't remember it. At any rate, no, I just thought it would be hilarious to sit in a blazer in a gold chair and pontificate about Dungeons and Dragons, much the same way Alistair Cook pontificates at the entry of a Masterpiece Theater special.
I love it.
About D&D. And that was just the brand. And I hired a lady I believe is in South Africa, Little Miss Beach Shop, I think is the name of her channel. But she like originally was a classical musician and now does like lo-fi stuff. You can look her up on YouTube and Instagram.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
But I hired her to make a lo-fi remix of that, and that's how that theme song came about. But no, I mean, I had beaten around the idea of talking about D&D for a while, and it was just one of those things that I was just always too busy. And then finally the pandemic came, and that's when I was like, okay, I'm not really doing anything else. I have the ability to commit time to something like this, and if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. I'm not going to just put up one video and then forget about it, So I put myself on a weekly schedule. I needed something constructive to do. Excuse me.
Yep.
I'm one of those kinds of people that if I don't have something constructive to do, I'm doing something destructive.
Don't believe that for a second.
And there's usually alcohol involved. Anyway, it just kind of started as a constructive hobby and took off from there. So
some of those I was what some of you folks might not know, I was privy to some of those earlier episodes as it was going. I remember you shot me a couple of them asking what do you think, how's this or how's that. So some of those before I guess pre-production videos were pretty great, like back at the start of it. And even from then, like I was like, dude, is that you? That voice is freaking like built for radio. What the hell, man?
Right.
That's a classy voice.
Who is this guy?
The topics right off the bat from some of the earlier ones that I thankfully you shared with me. Like, I mean, there were great topics all the way around and just beautifully built up.
Well, and I for folks who don't know, like I love this format that you are sitting there in your wingback and you are being critical and critical in an analyst sort of way. I think you have this on your website. I don't know that many people know this, but you are by training and education, right? A geopolitical analyst. What is that? First of all, I don't even know. Like, I'm just a hick in the sticks. Like, I don't even know what that is.
So it's a third job I moonlight.
And
No.
and how is that relevant to your channel?
So something that so geopolitical forecasting or geopolitical analysis is a methodology for understanding the machinations of what's actually going on in the world, trying to just basically cut through basically accruing as much honest and real information as you possibly can about what's going on in the world, and then using that information to make predictions for, whether it's for business or government or charity organizations or something to that effect. And usually it comes from the pretext of, I have a particular question and I don't feel like I have a full grasp on all the things that I need to know in order to be able to answer the question successfully. And part of the shtick is, C-level executives, and they're really good at being trading cards. Like, once you get past mid-level management in a corporate environment, it's really hard to peg fault on somebody unless they really screw up. Like, you have to do something obscenely stupid to completely ruin your life in that kind of environment, and you just become a trading card at that point. Like, if you're the CIO of a particular tech company, you're going to do that job for 3 years, and then you're going to go on and do it again somewhere else at another company, and then again at another company, and you're just a trading card. You just bounce around, right? And because you're doing it at a 3-year window, you never really experience something long enough to make really hard long-term predictions that you can say, other than, or that you can protect an organization from, and other than just being the guy who's holding the hot potato. It's like, I just got hired 6 months ago, the whole thing's burning down, I don't know what happened. So
I wasn't here when they stacked the wood.
I wasn't here when they stacked the wood. Exactly.
Right? I came after the match was thrown. Like,
exactly. So it's when you have that kind of organizational environment in Western society at Hawk, or at that level, and then you have VPs and mid-level managers, generally speaking, they're all scrambling. They're much more stable in their jobs. They're not the trading cards. They're trying to figure out how to actually keep their business unit going and moving in the right direction. So and sometimes it's hard for them to get a more full picture of what may be going on in the world and how that influences the decisions that they may want to make. So geopolitical forecasting kind of helps answer those kinds of questions. And then by understanding those things and then applying them to fantasy world building.
That was a monumental leap. I feel like, dude, like
I thought it was at first, but then just talking about these kinds of things, the comment, I just did a one-off video, here's the thing about rivers. Here's rivers
influences commerce, and
how rivers influence population development, commerce, and all this other stuff. And it's like, these are generally the things you see as a geopolitical strategist. Where rivers form, this is what generally happens, and this is what has generally happened across history. When you start to understand that, and geopolitics itself is a craft that takes, or it's a science that takes all of the knowledges of the various other sciences and says, I'm going to take geography and sociology and economics and physics and smash them all together into something that makes sense at a high level. And it's okay that I don't know all the details. But I know enough of the details to make something cohesive and to be able to explain it. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people who are trying to build an immersive world or a setting for the game worlds miss. You know, they may be very good at history, or they may be very good at geology, but you know, from their liberal arts background, but it's smashing it all together in a cohesive way that can help make a game world where you've thought through all of these things, that you don't get some asshole player who's going to break the verisimilitude of the game table because they just rip the band-aid off of your problem world building. And now you've thought through all of these things in a strategic way that holds the world together with super glue. And then
I mean, honestly, like this is a brilliant way, just focusing on just the things you kind of mentioned, like, you know, the mountain ranges, the social grouping, the rivers, and how that would influence commerce. Like, I mean, already you're setting up from your world building standpoint and within a game of, look at the string of plot hooks that are now sitting here.
Exactly. That's it's once you start to piece all those puzzle pieces together, the plot hooks all just become self-evident. They all like to jump out at you.
Right.
I mean, like, is it true that everywhere you find a waterfall, there's a gorgeous elven stronghold? Like, is that true?
Let me roll.
Yes.
Yes. The dice said yes.
The dice said yes. Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. Is that the ultimate aim of the channel, or is that the only thing going on? Because
it was an accident, actually. I accidentally became the fantasy geopolitical guy.
Well, that's some accidental genius.
I mean, it's pretty cool,
right?
That.
Yeah.
I wanted to just talk about dungeon mastering advice, and then I threw up a video about Faerun geopolitics, and honestly I didn't really know terribly much about the lore at the time. So I just kind of spitballed, like, this is what I would see, this is what I would expect to see if I were looking at it based on like my own Earth perspective. Like, this is the lore of Earth, and I'm going to just staple on to what I see going on in Faerun.
Gotcha.
And it was really interesting in the comments, like, how accurate I was despite not knowing the lore. Like, I definitely got a few things wrong, but like, there was one comment that really stands out to me. It's like, I don't really see why these cities are here in the Marzember area. Like, it should all have these particular qualities should be existing along this bay, because they have such access to resources, because the mountains are protecting them from invasion, because of all these things. Like, this is what you should be experiencing. And they were like, it's funny that you say that, because all these things are actually there in the world building. So Ed Greenwood was building a relatively cohesive world. But that doesn't mean but that's also a very, what we call a geopolitical determinist worldview, which there's some value there in looking at it through that lens, but you don't want to get too carried away that just because the geography is a particular way doesn't mean that the society is doomed to, like, explicitly doomed. It just means that they're very well presupposed to be that way. So like Argentina, if they can get their stuff together, Argentina is likely going to be a superpower in the next 100 years. But first, they got to get their stuff together. They got a lot of social issues they got to get through first. So, you know, that's what I mean by geopolitical determinism, right?
Right.
Like, are you doomed to be great? You're set up to be great if you can get your stuff together.
Right. If you stop listening to the U.S.
Interesting.
Sorry.
So what would you say to... Well, you know, because all of that, to me, sounds like a ton of lift. Like, that is a ton of pre-planning and a ton of pre-thinking. What do you say to the new DM who's just like, you know, I really want to build a world, you know, and I want it to be immersive, and I want players in it, but do I have to plan every river and every settlement?
No.
Like, what would be your advice there?
So I would start with a smaller region. I would always start with a smaller region. I don't like telling dungeon masters to start with like Colville says, just start with a village. I feel like that's a little too tight to really build something cohesive. But start with a region that can be trekked across in a week. That's the, like, whatever can be trekked across in a week on foot. That's what you need to start with. And to be clear, Italy or Greece can be walked across in a week. Ireland can be walked across in a week, right?
Right.
So that's plenty enough room to sandbox yourself into, and just whatever you feel looks good, start putting those things there. It doesn't necessarily have to make sense. It's a fantasy world.
Right.
But once you get the stuff on your map that you feel needs to be there, then what I would do, and this is kind of like a pop geopolitics methodology of analyzing a location, is to look at three things. The three R's of pop geopolitics are roots, resources, and relationships.
Oh, cool.
Excuse me. And when you excuse me just a second.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
The flu is
taking some notes
I'm
anyway.
so sorry. You probably kept you too long.
Oh no, I'm enjoying it. So when the roots are, how are all the disparate people groups connected to each other, and why are they connected? Be able to explain why they're connected. Anyway, if we're talking about roots, resources, and relationship, the roots will show you should be able to explain why disparate organized people groups talk to one another, and in what methods are they using to talk to one another. So, an obvious example is like a road, right? Like, why is the road there? Explain why the road is there. What are these two people trading with one another? What are ideas? What messages are they sending back and forth to one another?
Right. What's the need for having a road between these two townships?
Gotcha.
And if they're trading, then what exactly are they trading, and where is it? That's the resources, right? So now you know where the resources are, and how are these organized people groups getting access to those resources? What are they doing to get access to the resources? Because you also might have a route from the organized people group to the resource. Like, you have a city near a mountain chain. Well, now you got to have a mining camp over there. You got an organization that's, the mining company that is sending workers over there. And now you have the road between the mining camp and the city, right? And relationships also might show a connection between a government and the mining organization, right? So you can quickly scaffold a few factions in a city just by doing this. And then so the roots are like the roads or the methods of communication or transmission of resources and ideas. The resources, where those ideas exactly exist. And then the relationships is how each different group or organized faction feels about each other in this mishmash of roots and resources. And then what you'll identify, and what we call this in geopolitical analysis are strategic assessments, is what you identify is each faction or each organized people group has particular things that it needs in order to function properly. So the mining company that we just talked about, it needs access to a road to access the minerals to get it out of the mountains. It needs human resources from the city to go send to the mining camp to get the stuff. It needs smelters, people skilled smelters to process all these things. And then it needs customers to sell whatever it's manufacturing with that stuff. So like, it needs tradespeople who are blacksmiths and jewelers and all these other, whatever that is. And then who does it sell all of these things to? Right. So just from that alone, I've got all these different things that I have to protect. Right. Like, there might be three things that are really risky because this one particular road goes right through goblin territory, because I've decided that there's goblins that live in this forest. So now, what if I'm the city government and I want to take over this mining corporation? Okay, well, the road is going right through this goblin territory. Do I have like a nephew that used to go hunting with a goblin who knows the chieftain, and now I can send him to go pay the goblins a bunch of money to screw up their mining operation? And so now
get it cheap.
So now I can get it cheap. Like, and like, you just Game of Thrones this, like,
oh my God.
It's all, or what happens if the miners suddenly disturb Hellgate and a bunch of demons start coming out?
See,
right?
This is all way too big brain for me, because I'll tell you my design. My design is something is on fire. Okay. Now, oh, and the orcs are tunneling under. Roll
Right.
initiative. Like that's
Right.
like you're in the poop. You know, like I don't like if
Right.
like honestly, like that stuff for me like would get fleshed out as we go.
Right.
Because I'm a crazy person. And
I mean, there's nothing wrong with fleshing that stuff out as you go. It's just I guess the purpose of the channel is to just provide that framework for
totally.
fleshing it out. That's all it is.
No, absolutely. Well, no, and I would say, so I would say one of the things about me is I tend to run a lot of games in pre-established worlds. Like I typically don't do a ton of that lift anymore. I certainly used to.
I mean, when you get to be an adult, you don't have time.
yeah, right. It's like I'm going to sit down and build my world. Like I can't even build the first hole of a golf course. Like I don't even have like I can't get you 300 yards. Like that's how limited my time is, right? So like that's going to build as it goes. But I definitely think this is an outstanding resource for folks, because for the folks who are just like, hey, I'm going to roll some dice and draw a weird map, or drop some beans on a page and draw my map, and now I'm going to start to flesh out my map.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
These are all outstanding considerations beyond just, I want to drop a cool tower here, or I want to drop this magical veil of woods, right here.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that all still kind of falls into the same thing, because even looking at it, with this whole geopolitical front, which, again, I have to reiterate, it's a brilliant tool. I mean, you always need new tools in your box. But like, even going at it, looking from a small point, you can put that magical grove in there. You can put that weird little tower in there. And those are already like points where you can think of, okay, from that starting small, obviously village, starting a tavern. But these are things that are known. Like there's this magical grove, there's this other thing.
Right.
You can go explore those now, but those are things you can build in later. Of why is this grove a magical grove?
Right.
Why, who cares?
Well, right. Why is it abandoned?
Who cares about it?
Or what is the rumor
tower.
like? Why does nobody go there anymore? Or why do people telling their kids like, do not go to this veil?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
That
kind of stuff. These are things that can be built in, and those can all, as you explore and have your players flesh this world out, there's a lot more things to see on the importance of this veil, or what it used to be important for. You could start kind of piecing those in, that whoever used to run this tower, they built it there because that veil is over there. Things were lost because now that we've entered the big bad of our castle over here, this kingdom that we've kind of been secluded from because of our mountain valley, now that we're realizing that they're the cause of whatever happened to the guy in the tower that was built there, because of things start to like swirl together on reasonings, or it could be built upon from a smaller standpoint.
It's all there to just show that nothing is happening in a vacuum, and everything is impacted by everything else.
Even if you don't see it yet,
even if you don't see it yet, there's a way that it impacts somebody else.
Well,
look at, I mean, just to reflect on modern, for example, if I was talking about this with some of my patrons, like when Ramadan falls in the winter months, like chicken prices go up by like 7%. Why?
Oh my gosh.
Right.
And it's only because the confluence of all these different holidays happening at the same time. You've got Hanukkah, you've got Denali, you've got like all of these different holidays happen all around the same time.
Yeah, I think there's something like 25 or 26 or something different holidays all within this period.
Right. But when the Muslim world practices the Ramadan at the same time as all these other world religions, it creates a cluster of commerce in that month. So
that's crazy.
Interesting.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, so definitely in terms of RPG deep think on this topic, the Baron is your man. At the RPG masterpiece. I mean, truthfully, I don't know that anybody else is doing this and taking this sort of discerning view of
Matthew Colville did it from a. I would say Matthew Colville did it from a very he did it from a very liberal arts ivory tower perspective, if that makes sense. He was very good at talking theoretically about it from 40,000 feet for 45 minutes.
Yeah, but
I'm trying to give you something that's more crunchy and tactical.
Nuts and bolts. Absolutely. Yeah, practical advice to make you better right now.
Yeah,
right? The useful stuff that you can get to your table, and that's definitely like what we like to go for.
That's what Joe and I are all about. Like,
we want that usage at the table. Like, the deep think on the broader picture of it. Yeah, that's great. But like, we want to get out of the armchair. Like, having the stuff to use at the table is beautiful.
Yeah. What can I implement right now to make me better?
Yeah, and your channel definitely is chock full of that.
Add a tool to my toolbox. All right.
Thank you.
So, where else can people find you out in the world in terms of social media?
That's it. I strategically do not get on social media. Me getting on social media is a bad thing.
Big brain, told you.
but you do have a Patreon where people can support you.
I do have a Patreon. If you want to join my Patreon, I've got a couple of tiers there. I think I'm about to turn one off. I'm just so busy. But for $5 you can join up, and I've got a Discord you can join if you want to hang out and chat, ask me questions, pick my brain.
That's awesome.
Or if you're not on Discord, just shoot me a Patreon message. And if you want to email me, you can email me. I've got a link to it on my YouTube channel.
Yep.
If your question is enticing enough, I'll answer. It might take me a few days.
Yep. So what other projects do you have going on? And specifically, you kind of did something crazy, you crazy man.
Oh, I'm still doing something crazy.
Yeah, you are.
I got really frustrated last month. Like, really frustrated when I rolled up. Like, I don't know what it was. Like, I rolled up on a treasure table a +5 Holy Avenger. And I was like,
that's not small.
It's not small. It's not small, but it's like, this is the rarest magic item in the game, and I've seen it 7 times. Like, I'm done. I was just done. I was like, if I've already seen the rarest magic item rolled up 7 times, why am I still using this table? I'm just bored. So I set about to, heavily inspired by the magic item or the treasure generation system that is found in Mouse Ritter, is what I'm basing it off of. But Mouse Ritter it's got a decent amount of magic items in it. There's like 20, I think. I decided 20 wasn't enough, and I was going to do 216 magic items. But then I decided that wasn't enough. So now I'm doing 1296, I think. It's a D6666 table. 4D6.
Yep.
That's how many you get. That many magic items. I took a bunch of
6,
obviously
5, 2, 5. That's what I just rolled.
I can pull up the document and we can roll a few up that are in the document right now. It's totally an alpha.
Crap.
It's totally an alpha.
We understand.
Yeah, it's nowhere near done right now. But the goal is to have a treasure generation system that is system agnostic, that you can roll treasure for any basically remotely cookie cutter fantasy game and get some wild magic stuff that has never been done before.
Super fun stuff.
It started with me just taking inspiration from the audience, right? Like, I was taking, I'd posted a bunch of community posts. Just,
I remember those.
Here's a genre. Tell me what your crazy magic idea is, and I'll riff on it and put it in this book, and then give it away for free. That's the goal. And PDF will be free. It's funny because I got a lot of comments that are like, "Do your own work. You're so lazy," and I'm like, I'm giving it away. Giving it away.
Oh my gosh.
But
that's crazy, man.
The 8.5 by 11 Google Doc is already 200 pages long, and
chunky.
I know, and I'm gonna kickstart it specifically so that I can raise money to hire artists that will illustrate the book. So I'll sell like an actual book, and to be clear, I do intend, because this is a lot of effort, I do intend to sell the book at a for-profit price. But
sure.
The PDF, totally free to download.
Epic. That's epic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and
So-
for folks who don't know, while you were at Jeff Con, you crazy person,
I was going to bring those up.
like while you were at Jeff Con, like in between games.
Oh yes. Yeah.
You were doing live streams.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, yeah, I brought a couple shotgun mics, like head up to the room. But you did a live stream with old Hankering.
I did one with Hankering. I did one with
PDM, Professor Dungeon Master,
Professor Master and Tabletop Engineer.
Yeah, Tabletop Engineer. And then you also did one with DM Scotty, right? And Wylock.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, let's make magic items.
Yeah.
I was going to bring those videos up.
And those videos exist. So please, if you're watching or listening to this on the podcast, by all means, go check out those videos on the Dungeon Masterpiece YouTube channel. They're super fun and funny.
Yeah.
Also, like those guys were definitely having a good time doing those.
It was hilarious.
Yeah, hilarious. Some of the items are a complete hoot and a half. Like they're, I mean, it's just amazing what you're doing. I say tongue in cheek, you're a crazy person, because a 213 document of magic items and you're still not even done yet is the work of craziness. Like,
yeah,
maybe you're a mad genius. Let's settle for that. Mad genius.
I don't know. Do you want to roll on the magic item and see the kind of crazy stuff that's in here right now? There's a lot of chaff that I've got to go through and clean up and make it better. I love rolling on it occasionally. I mean, there's 1,300 magic items in here.
We understand that this is pre-alpha, but
yes.
If you would honor us, Joe and I would love to roll.
Okay, so each of you roll.
I'm taking my dice already.
Yep.
and the table is not fully filled out yet, so I don't know what we're gonna get. Yeah. I may have you re-roll. So Alex, give me a number.
Yes, sir. I've got 6.
Ooh.
6,
5, 6, 1.
6, 5, 6, 1 is the Traveler's Saddle. I believe that's one that I made with Hankering. This light saddle belongs on no beast, but can be lifted into the air at an oh no, this is not that one. This lightweight saddle belongs on no beast, but can be lifted in the air at an appropriate height for the bearer, and a steed of smoke and shadow will appear underneath it for a day's travel.
Heck yeah.
Ooh, that's cool.
A pretty cool magic item.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your table clearly knows me. Like, that's my preferred way to travel anyway.
Right.
So
right on Smoke Horse.
That's epic.
On Smoke Horse.
Epic.
Okay.
I love it. I love it.
Joe, what do you got?
Ooh, I rolled 4,423 or
23.
4423.
Okay, this is the Wand of Exchange. The caster can switch places with any creature that they can see by pointing the wand and yelling the command word exchange.
I will take it. There's 100% chance I'm going to use that.
Oh my gosh! Could you imagine just like purposely jumping off a cliff at like something up on the cliff? Exchange. Bam.
Well, here's what you don't know about Joe, is that Joe doesn't like innocence in peril. Like, he has a soft spot whenever there are innocents in peril. So
they use this against me in like every game.
Yeah,
I'm all for it. I'm all in.
Yeah, I know how to push his buttons. He would totally use that Wand of Exchange to like save innocents, like all day, every day.
Oh my gosh!
Joe would trade.
So funny.
Joe would trade places with the person in danger.
Right.
Yeah, they all know how to push those buttons.
To kidnap or rescue some kidnapped child, and you find them in a cage. Exchange.
That's exactly what would happen.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Hands down.
And I would just wait for the guys to come back. They're like, oh no, we're gonna get this little scullion out, ain't gonna brighten him. Yeah. And they come in and it's just me, and I'm like, hello, boys. Zap, zap.
Hilarious.
Exchange.
Oh man. Well,
I love it.
Guys, this is killer what you're doing. I'm so excited for this. I can't wait for it to come out. And I hope people go check out those videos because they are a hoot. And I hope they ultimately support you with this project. Like, I hope they buy the book, and then it's really cool. Like, it's super.
I mean, the
copy.
book will be there just for the artists, but like the PDF.
But
I mean, the PDF will have the art in it too. Like, it'll be a full digital version.
Yeah, but crazy collectors who have bookcases and like
exactly.
having a tome.
Yeah, I love roll tables.
Right. Well. And you should know something about our gaming group, Baron. Like, we are loot monkeys. Like, we love loot. So this speaks to me at a visceral level. Like, Like I think I would sleep with this book. Like it's super cool. Like I really hope people check it out. What else? Any other special projects you got going on beyond that, or is that the
yeah,
big one?
that's
a project.
that's actually the small one. No, I started. So I have a really deep love affair with. It's really funny because I've probably got this brand of being this geopolitical world building, and like I'll build a world like as complex as Mass Effect or Game of Thrones, right? But I really love Diablo and like CRPGs from the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'll just the 90s fantasy tropes that were found in those games are just I don't know, I just have they just have a special place in my heart. So I've been working with another content creator, Sigurd, at Weltenbauer Club. He's a tabletop crafter, smaller channel, but his crafts are absolutely phenomenal.
That's awesome.
So go check him out. But he and I are working on a RPG setting that's kind of like what would happen if we took the tropes of 90s RPGs, applied them to a 5th edition campaign, but built the campaign setting and book in a way that it had a lot of like the Diablo as well as OSR sensibilities smashed into it. So it's super tropey. Like there's nothing original about it, to be clear. But it's what's original is the presentation. So typical nonsense of a necromancer attacking a group of city states that all hate each other is the trope. Okay. But yeah, that's the general gist of it. And Sigurd is doing all the layout and artwork. He is a graphic designer by trade, and but yeah, it's coming. We're getting close. We're getting close to being done. We had initially thought we were going to be done in June, but we're getting close to the end. So we're going to kickstart that.
That's nice.
Hopefully that pans out well. But it'll be fun because it's got a lot of like it's the 5th edition shtick, but the way that we've presented it is very OSR. So there's tons of random stuff to do. Nice. Everything's super zany, new subclasses that are very OSR thematic.
Amazing.
New monsters, new reimagined stat blocks for all the monsters. Like skeleton is not skeleton, it is a different skeleton. Stuff like that. So
that's awesome.
Nice.
Oh, that's super cool.
That's awesome.
I had no idea you were doing that. And
that's awesome.
I think the other thing too that's that I need to mention is that people don't know about you maybe is that you are also an RPG crafter as well.
Yes, I am.
Yep.
I do. I thought I had considered for a while doing some crafting on my channel, but I decided against it. It's just too much. It would be too much of a pivot for where I am in my life, like hardware wise. Yep. It's all like I have a very clean setup with my studio set. I don't want to monkey with that. So
yep, gotcha. But you are a very accomplished crafter.
Thank you.
And so that lends me to maybe my next question, which is, what is your favorite way to game? Is it full 3D terrain at the table? Is it having some sort of map, even if it's like like a dry erase type map? Is it theater of the mind? Is it VTT? Like what is your favorite way to game?
I like a visual aid usually, but it depends. Mm-hmm. When I'm playing an OSR game, except for Mouse Ritter, I don't particularly find myself wanting it for Mouse Ritter. I find a visual aid is good for OSR. I don't like the tactical nature that a tabletop presents, like having a battle mat. I don't like the way that presents the miniatures in OSR. I think the dungeon pizza that PDM created with like a near, far, and out of range zone is a good way to represent that on the table. I would still like to see something like a set, like what the DMG info posited on his channel.
Yeah, that was a cool video too.
It was a cool concept, and I wish he had time to explore that more. I know he's a busy man, but I'd like to see that more. I haven't gotten around to doing it for OSR. I think it would be more successful. If I'm playing 5th edition or West End, I want the tactical battle mat. You know, I want a 24-inch. I have a 24-inch dungeon pizza that I made that is huge, specifically so I can do the tactical stuff and still spin it around on the table.
Oh my gosh.
But then also for Mothership or horror games, I don't want any terrain at all. I want everything to live in your imagination so that the sensation of the horror is more visceral and more real. Because once it's on, I find that once it's on the table, it becomes very gamey. You know, it's when it's in your, and this is classic storytelling in cinema too, that, you know, until you see the creature, you know, you don't know what it is, and that's terrifying. And once you see the creature, it's because you know what it is and you know how terrifying it is. So it just reinforces the fear instead of, you know, being able to fly over in a some sort of spaceship and observe it and scan it and learn all about it, and then you fly back to your spaceship. Okay, so we know it's weak against these types of things, so we're going to make this concoction of, you know, chemical gases and blow it up. You know, that's not fun. So you know, it might be smart, but it's not fun for a game. So yeah, for horror games, I don't want any terrain. Gotcha. I want it all to be in your mind.
Gotcha.
Yeah, definitely don't show the monster in the first 5 minutes.
Exactly.
You know, it was always so true. You know, I came from, you know, coming up in college, you know, when the internet was still becoming a thing.
Right.
You know, I used to play a lot of MUDs, you know, these multi-user dungeons.
I used to write for one.
And they were, me too. And they were always so cool from the standpoint that most of the game lived in your head. Like, yeah, you had these text-based descriptions, but, you know, like Saiwin, the champion of Ryodan, was always infinitely more terrifying in terms of your mind picture than if later on, as you got these graphical sort of MUDs, like Ultima Online took off, some of these other sort of games where then suddenly you pictured, you actually had the Lich on the screen. It was never as terrifying as what was in your mind.
It was all like before MMOs. Like you could almost say like they were like the first kind of MMOs.
Absolutely.
But it was all text based, and you're running around with a bunch of other folks.
Absolutely.
Right. Just text.
But I will say I do have a hard time living in theater of the mind. I think it takes a certain type of DM to be engaging enough to really sort of keep everybody's attention at the table. Have you had a similar experience, Baron? Is that the case for you?
For theater of the mind?
It probably no surprise. I'm highly visual, and I don't think I'm alone necessarily. But then there are other people who are just like, I love theater of the mind. Like it's my favorite way to play.
I find that players, unless you are pushing pressure onto the players, or it's very clear that they're in danger, I find that sometimes my players are like, "Can we get a visual aid? Can I get something?"
Right, just,
you know,
just a campfire image, just something.
Just a campfire, yeah, just something. Honestly, Midjourney is kind of a godsend for something like that, because, you know, I can just prompt a riff and give them a picture to look at.
Gotcha.
And honestly, something even as simple as a flowchart that shows the layout of a dungeon as they're exploring it, you know, that's enough. You know, it doesn't have to be a lot, but, you know, I some players do need a visual aid.
Yeah.
But in Mothership, I want to give you as little aid as possible.
Oh, I love it. Just keep all those dark corners very scary.
Exactly.
Right? I love it.
That's
awesome.
I
love it. Well, hey man, golly, I feel like we've kept you like super long, and I know it's
been about 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I know you're just recovering, so I don't want to keep you any longer. Honestly, unless you want to go longer, but I think I'm just going to hit you.
I'm good for a while, but yeah.
Well, then let's do two things.
Okay.
One is let's talk about because we talked about this and you even said 5e is one of your favorite ways to play, but you've also been sort of critical of 5e.
Just because I like it doesn't mean I can't hate it.
Yeah, well, and I would say, I'll just sort of maybe start this out with my thoughts on it. I don't dislike 5e. I kind of enjoy playing 5e. I enjoy running 5e. Not too terribly long ago, at the start of the pandemic, like I was involved in a very long running 5e campaign. I had a live table game where we were playing 5e. There are really sort of three things. Well, I'll say two things about 5e that I really sort of dislike. The first is I think just in general it's overwritten, and that's a problem to me because how it manifests in terms of the table is that then you get players who also struggle to know all their abilities, and that tends to slow down the game for me. And that to me that's the enemy of the table, that sort of slow play. The other thing that I think you run into is that I don't think 5e scales very well. And specifically, I would point to the sort of the hit point scaling. Because what happens is, if you ultimately end up with 4 players who each have, say, 40 to 50 hit points, all of a sudden to have a comparable monster, like let's say it's just one, that monster has to have at least, 200 hit points. And I find doing all that whittling back and forth, even to challenge the players in a meaningful way to get them close to death, it takes up so much time, which is then you run into like these, like one combat could take 3 hours.
Yeah.
For example, to chew through all of that. So I don't like the way it sort of scales compared to, say, ICRPG, where you've got like 10 hit points. Very unusual if you have 20 or even 30. And death is, you take a couple hits and suddenly like you're on death's door.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, way better. So those are the I see as two of the biggest problems with 5e that I dislike, that I kind of wish was different. I wish everything was in more bullet format that you could easily access it better as a player and a DM.
Yeah.
But you raised, when we were kind of talking offline a couple days ago, something more interesting. Especially when I raised the hit points, you're like, that's old news. And really, you said that you thought maybe the death mechanic was also maybe a problem creature.
It's very forgiving.
Yeah, the death mechanic is a like, if you're trying to do a sword and sorcery game, the death mechanic is so wound up in the rest of the rules of the system that it's a very I don't understand when people say that 5th edition is easily hackable and modifiable, because it's not. There's so much of the system that is interrelated. It is so tightly wound.
It's rigid.
It's so rigid that if you don't play by its rules, you can't homebrew. Like, if you decide that you don't like a mechanic, if you remove that mechanic, you've nullified 7 spells. You've completely gotten rid of the opportunity of like 4 different subclass abilities to even function as intended. You've and the death mechanic is really a large part of this. But the notion that characters can perceivably die in 5th edition is damn near laughable to me. Like, as a 5th edition DM, I've had to like seriously put on my asshole DM hat and say, that player, I'm going to try to kill them, and still can't do it.
You have to work extra hard as
responsible encounter design. Like, I could be like demigod and kill them, sure.
Yeah, right.
But
you have to work extra hard as a DM within that framework to challenge players in a meaningful way. And sometimes it gets to the point where, as you correctly point out, to challenge them in a meaningful way, it almost feels like you're being unfair.
Yes, right? Exactly. So, so like, if you look at the death save mechanic, like, let's say you're a wizard, and because you've got the lowest amount of hit points, and you get bum rushed by a bunch of orcs who jump out from behind a bunch of boulders, and they tag team the wizard, drops to 0. You're on death saves. Okay, now the paladin and the cleric have moved in to shield the wizard, and now, so you don't have to worry about getting smacked for the double crit fails, but the wizard's just bleeding out, right? So that means they've got 2 failures and 3 successes, or 2 failures and 2 successes that they can just roll at their heart's content. That's 4 rounds. Let's be clear here. That's 4 rounds that they have to endure before something finally happens to their character that dictates whether they're able to stabilize or die.
Yep.
Right? That's on average, that's 4 rounds. So if they die in the first 2 rounds of combat, and then they have 4 more rounds before anybody even like tries to deal with the problem of them burning out, that's 6 rounds of combat. Well, most boss fights end on between rounds 5 and 7. You know, if you're looking at a deadly encounter, the way that stacks out between rounds 5 and 7. So that means you can have a character drop and sit out an entire boss fight and nobody even worry about it until the character finally has to deal with the issue. So, you know, it's personally, I wish they would have just made it so that you die on next round. And generally when
so forgiving
to house rule it, you don't have any successes and you get 1 failure, you know,
right?
Or which means you just fail. You automatically fail. So don't let it roll back to your initiative. Somebody's got to help you,
right?
You know.
Yeah. I'm in a live table of 5th edition game. You know, every other week we meet up at the coffee shop, and the last session there was twice in the one combat. It was a big combat. You know, we kind of just talked about it. We had a 3-hour combat. And I acted twice. I acted in the first round. I got trounced. I dropped. I was dying. I got healed because, you know, as that happened, the cleric came up next. So they cast their, you know, they used one of their spell slots. Boom. I was healed. I had 10 hit points back. So I was up and standing again. And then I made it through that whole round, came back. I got to act a second time. Then I got hit again, all my hit points, and I was back to dying. And that was the entire combat for me.
Right.
I had the first 2 rounds, and then I was dying the whole rest of the time. And like you said, exactly that same thing. Like, it wasn't that big a concern. Like, there were other things that needed to be done. So they were doing that. And I just spent the time, like, it'd come to me. I'm like, oh, I failed that. I'm going to fill a bubble.
Right.
And then waiting and waiting. And like, it's so forgiving. Like, I should have been dead.
Well, here's what's poor about that from a game design perspective is that on the one hand, you protect the player, you protect the character, right? And that was the goal. Well, clearly that was the goal. Is characters wanted to be more durable. Okay, fine. We can do that. But when you make them that, like, I think the pendulum swung the wrong direction or too far in the other direction, because when your character is that durable, now all of a sudden all the other players realize that they can just let you bleed out for 3 hours worth of gameplay and go on and deal with more pressing problems. Whereas if you were going to die next round, now all of a sudden you're the most pressing problem and they have to deal with that. Otherwise your character dies. So you still have the durability of your character's going to die next round, right?
Yep.
You still have that problem, but so your character still has some durability, but you're no longer in this situation where you can be afforded the boredom of waiting for all the other players to do something for 2.5 hours.
Right. Yeah, because the way it kind of is now, like the whole death save mechanic, it kind of feels like you're just pushed into a limbo space for a minute.
Well, yeah,
exactly.
And you just hang out there. Yeah. Like, that's time, like, if I had just died, like if it had just ended, or, you know, beginning of my next turn, if I'm not up, I get the 1 roll or I'm dead. Like, I could have been kind of paying attention and, you know, having a good time and making a new character versus just sitting there going like, oh, okay. Oh, hey, that thing exploded by me. And okay, I mark a fail. All right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now I'm still just hanging out and waiting to see if I can roll a 10 or better on my D20.
It's why
it's a limbo.
Well, it's why I really do like ICRPG's method better, you know, in terms of the death timer. Like, you roll a D4, it still might be a 4, it still might be 4 rounds, but you know when it hits 0, that person will die. Like, you can't mess around too much.
The action economy in ICRPG, it's also sped up. So, like, in that amount of time that, like, 1 full round and the way 5th edition is set up with all the actions, the reactions, the bonus actions, the free actions, the attacks of opportunity,
with your mom's maiden name actions.
Exactly. With all of that stuff, we've already run like 3 rounds in ICRPG, and next round you're going to die. Like it is a whole different thing. Like it's a better balance on the fifth and I play fifth edition. Like we play every 2 weeks.
Yep.
That death mechanic is just, man, it's like a wet sponge. It's just not fun. It's sitting there. Maybe it's got some mildew spell on it. Like somebody didn't bring it out.
Yeah,
like
so get bleach.
It's a wet blanket.
Yeah,
wet blanket mechanic.
It's way too forgiving. Like it kind of like detracts just based on that. They're like it's almost not fun in that sense. Like, and I'm not trying to talk crap on fifth edition, but the fact that something like that is so baked in to that broader system
that's it.
It just kind of like it. I don't know, man. It's like you asked for Cholula and they brought you Tabasco, and you're like, I wanted flavor, not spicy vinegar.
Yeah.
Too much vinegar.
Like, I don't know. I probably tangented there, but I'm in full agreement. Like it's a spongy. It needs a little bit of work, but it is intrinsic to the way the whole thing is written.
Yeah.
Like if you start pulling at it.
Hey,
I don't know.
Just take it out. Like, go. What is it? The DMG, like the hardcore mode, rules for death and dying, right? Like, it has a thing where, right? I think that's right. I think the DMG has an alternate mechanic for playing a hardcore mode for death and dying.
I'm not terribly familiar with it.
I think so. Where I think it's a bit more deadly.
Right.
But
it's got to be hidden. One of those. I mean, I say hidden, but it's not really hidden. Like, there's a lot of like nuggets that are pretty great in the Dungeon Master's Guide that are just tucked away, never really used, or I mean, and that's part of that's part of like the writing bloat.
Well, but it's not a base mechanic, right? Like, the base mechanic as it exists is just not fun. So there we go. Anything else that you dislike about it, Baron? That you dislike about 5e?
Fifth edition?
Yep.
It's one of those double-edged swords that I think is an advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't like how long it takes to run combat once you get past like level 5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that.
Yeah,
but
extra attacks and all that.
I find that a lot of players who are like that. Well, I should say this. I preface that when I play when I play fifth edition, I tend to find myself wanting to play at much higher levels, like level 11 and above. And I find that when you have players who are experienced and know the things inside and out, it just moves. It can move. It's still crunchy, but it is not a game for noobs. It's not. And if you're a noob, when you get to level, they used to call it epic level 6. When you get to, now you get a subclass ability at level 7, right? But when you get to level 7, like that should be where you end the campaign. Yeah. If your players are starting to struggle and you see the game mechanics slowing down, end your game at level 7. Right. So don't let them level up any more than that.
Yeah, I'm like a level 1 to 5, level 1 to 6.
Right.
Like I think once you hit that, it's kind of a sweet spot, and just call it.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I mean, I played like I had a guy not too long ago who was level 14, level 15, before we wrapped, and that was
and there's
great.
nothing wrong with that. Just make sure that your players are actually aware of their abilities and know them inside and out, and don't let new players play wizards.
Yeah, it's a shame.
That's a whole lot of page flipping that probably is not going to happen until the moment they go to use it.
Well, back to my point about being overwritten, right? Because I even had my page numbers tabbed and marked on my sheet and could instantly flip to the spells and was ready to go as a spellcaster. And even then, sometimes it's hard. You're planning your turn. It's sometimes hard to have all the verbiage and to get through it and to be 100% ready when it comes back around to you.
Totally.
Yep. All right, man, you have been awesome. Thank you so much for doing this.
No problem.
Yeah.
But I want to hit you with 2 lightning round questions here.
Let's do it.
Just 2.
Okay.
The first one is, as a player, what's the best piece of advice that you would give to other players out there? From the Baron, what is the best player advice you would give?
It's twofold. Don't overthink your character backstory. Bring something that's interesting, but your backstory should be something that is a problem you have not yet solved. That should be the centerpiece of your backstory. And better, this is the other part of it, do something with your backstory and ask this question of your dungeon master. Is there a particular thing that you want me to link my character backstory to?
Ooh,
is there something in your game and you don't have to be explicit when you're the dungeon master sharing this information. Just ask, like, give me a few things that I could latch onto, like, hey, I'm looking at playing, an orphanage who grew up on the street and then became an apprentice of some sort of expert, maybe and be willing to be loose with your idea, right? Like, maybe I was an apprentice of a sage or a wizard or a cleric or some kind of spellcaster or apothecary or something. I want to have a connection to this kind of organization, maybe a bookkeeping guild or a librarian guild, something like that. Is there something in your game world that I can shoehorn my character's backstory into? And then I have this problem that relates to that for my own personal character's development. Here's my character's problem. That is all you need. You should be able to sum all of that up and within 100 words. If you've gone beyond that, you're doing too much.
Well, to me, it's 2 bullets. Like, here's my favorite one. Gilsunder, Holy Knight of Grey, on a quest to find his brother's killer.
Yeah, perfect. And then be sure that those things mesh with the game, the game world.
Yeah, right.
That the dungeon master can pull that stuff in and at least easily ram it into a side quest. Yeah. But it's even better when you can somehow tie your backstory to the main quest.
Right. Absolutely.
Whatever's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Second question.
Nice.
What is your
answer?
What is your yeah, I love it. What is your best piece of DM advice that you would give other DMs?
Do it.
Watch the channel.
Just do it. No, just seriously. Yeah. And not just do it, but I have a friend who I used to, because he was the kind of guy that, like, I was always with him, like, whenever it's like, what is it, Jay and Silent Bob type friends, like, like they're always together. I had a friend by the name of Nick growing up, and he had a teacher that taught him guitar. He had a music teacher that taught guitar, and he would go learn guitar. And of course, I went with him. I just would sit in the chair in the back of the classroom and hang out, right? And occasionally, I wasn't rude about it, but occasionally would offer quippy jokes, but that was it. And the teacher was amenable to me being there. But he said something that jumped out to me that I got this lesson for free from this guy. His name was Cliff, I believe. Perfect practice makes perfect. And that's something that, you don't really think about. Like, practice makes perfect. But if you're just doing it, if you're just going through the motions, you're not actually doing it. So yes, you have to do a lot of it. You have to put in the hours. And you're only going to get somewhere if you're putting in the hours as a dungeon master. And it takes a lot of effort. But you also have to step back and think about, like, am I doing this the right way? What am I doing well? What is actually succeeding? What is not succeeding? Are there things I could be doing better? And regularly ask yourselves those questions. And if you're not regularly asking yourselves those questions, then you're not actually analyzing if you're actually putting in the time. It's just empty work at that point. So you have to really analyze, what are you doing that's working? How can I make those things better? What am I doing that's not working? How can I stop doing those things?
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful advice.
Yes.
It's beautiful advice. And I would just say, that's very similar to my own philosophy. That DMing is a craft. It's something that you can get better at with reps. Yep. I like to use the word reps. So, just like working out in the gym, you will see progress over time, but you have to put in the reps. And I do believe that you can reduce DMing to a purposeful set of behaviors that you can repeat and get better 100%. At and improve. And I know initially when some people hear that, they tend to freak out a little bit, right? But what I would say to those folks is that But the beauty of this and what that means is that this is accessible to anybody if you're willing to put in some of the time. Like, you can get better at it. And actually, you can get better really fast with just a few just
you can get better insanely fast, and
exponentially.
Here's a message that I just want to share to all the would-be dungeon masters who are nervous about getting started. Okay. You've got access to blogs. You've got access to YouTube. There's so many brilliant people on YouTube. If you don't like my content, it doesn't jive with you, fine. You don't have to watch it. Go watch Dungeon Lair or the DM's Lair. Go watch Dungeon Coach. Go watch Bob World Builder, Zipper on Disney, Hanker and Fernell. There's PDM. There are so many people who are offering their own ideas of what makes a good dungeon master in a good D&D session. Find that information, consume some of it, and then try to put that into action in a one-shot adventure. And here's the mind-blowing part that I'm going to blow your mind with right now. If you listen to any one of these dungeon masters' advice, and you go read a blog from the Angry DM, if you put any one particular thing of advice into one-shot adventure, and you do it, and it's a disaster, that attempt was still better than Gary Gygax's first run.
Yeah.
It was still better than the very first game Gary Gygax ran. You will already be better than Gary Gygax was when he first started playing D&D.
Yep, because they didn't have any of those blogs or videos to watch.
And they were figuring it out all on their own. You know, people joke about how when old school DMs called Gary on the phone and were like, "Hey, I didn't really understand what you meant by the rules in this particular thing, and I just wanted you to clarify this." And Gary would always say, "Well, how did you run it at the table?" And then they would explain it, and he would say, "That sounds pretty good. That sounds like the right thing." And it's likely because Gary was learning from them.
Right.
That's what they're missing. That's what
I never had that situation. How did it work?
I wasn't in this situation before, and he just learned from this other dungeon master how to do it at his own table. So
exactly.
Well, yeah.
So that is the takeaway here is just do it and be systematic about it. Just start trying stuff and think about why it worked or didn't.
Right.
So, that's
right.
epic.
Yeah. And this piece of advice you tried, like if it didn't work, like, is the idea still cool? Because maybe you can try again.
Yeah.
What did you learn from the one that didn't work?
Yeah.
Why didn't it work? What can you do to make it work?
Exactly.
Especially if it's something that you think is cool.
Well, I think I don't want to snatch defeat here from the jaws of victory. That is a perfect place to end. Baron, honestly, dude, thank you so much for doing this. It has been such a pleasure to sit down and chat with you.
It's been fun.
Yeah, it's been super fun. And despite some of our differences on different topics, like that's what makes the world go round. Your take is always so great and so intuitive. I think you are definitely one of the big brains in the hobby, and it is really my hope that folks who are listening and who are watching, that they go check you out, that they give you a ton of love and support, because you absolutely deserve it. And man, I just couldn't be more grateful for you, man.
Thank you very much. It's been a blast just hanging out and chatting. I normally don't go for longer than an hour and a half, so that should say something.
Whatever. You were the guy who was just like, we should plan for 4 hours. That's what you said.
That's because I knew I was going to enjoy chatting with you.
The respect and admiration is mutual. It really is an honor. So thanks so much.
And
I guess, Joe?
Oh, yeah.
Take us out.
I almost forgot. I was like just still in the moment. My bad. Yeah. Off go is showing you hero coin, and in the meantime, I would love everybody to take my hero coin and always roll ultimate effort. I bungled through that. Bye, everyone.
Bye everybody.